at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. And this is where the championship for Imsa Prototype Challenge will be decided, just north of Atlanta, Georgia, in Brazelton, Georgia. One of the most difficult 2.5 miles of asphalt you'll find in North America. High-speed sections, turn 1, very, very quick. The daunting S's down to turn 5. 6 and 7, you can get some passes done, but you want that good run out of 7 because that takes you to the best passing zone on the racetrack. Heavy braking from close to 165 miles an hour into turn 10. It is a glorious, cool day. Welcome, everyone. Brian Hill, Jeremy Shaw. We will take you all the way to the checkered flag. A 3-hour enduro to decide the championship. Jeremy, take us through the grid.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. A bright and early start for these guys today. 3-hour race, the final round, 6th and final round of this year's Imsa Prototype Challenge. 14 cars from the back. Car number 60 is Bruce Hamilton the third. Alongside him, Greg Palmer in car number 3. Row 6 is Paul LaHaye in car number 86, alongside Joel Janko in car number 47. Lance Willsey will start car number 33 for the 10th position, alongside Joe Robillard in car number 10, and row 4. Cameron Castles in car number 75, and Jerry Kraut, two-time winner this season, in car number 9. Dan Goldberg in car number 6, and car number 74, John Brownson, will share row 3. Row 2 is Dominic Cicero, very much with the championship aspirations today in car number 54 for MLT Motorsports, locally based team, alongside Keith Grant in car number 40. That's for 47 Motorsports and Norma. 2 Norma M30 chassis on the front row. In the second position, a brilliant qualifying effort for a guy who hadn't even sat in a race car 1 year ago. That's Stephen Thomas in car number 11, and his K2R Motorsports teammate and championship leader in car number 64, Naveen Rao, will start on the pole position.
And it should be a good one. I said championships to be decided today. And right now, Naveen Rao, Matt Bell, they hold on to that championship lead, but only by 6 points, Jeremy. That means that Dakota Dickerson and his teammate Dominic Cicero can take the championship if they win. Now, Cicero not in it in the points with his teammate Dakota Dickerson, but he's got a lot of work to do. But I was talking to that team earlier today, the 54 car, and they have gone with a low downforce setting. If you look at the 54, get a close look at the nose on the 54, the 4th car in line there, you'll see no dive planes on the front end, just below the headlights. No dive planes, a very small gurney. No dive planes on the 54 as you see it there. That's going to give them about 3 miles an hour more down the straightaways and try to help them contend with that top speed advantage that the Norma chassis seem to have had all season.
Yeah, you're right, Brian. The Normas have been really, really slippery. They've been very much the cars to beat in this championship for the last couple of years. So that MLT Motorsports team doing everything they can to make that car competitive. For Dominic Cicero, as you say, missed the first round of the championship. Coming in, he's been out of professional racing for about 10 years, so he's done a really good job this season. But for the pole sitter, Naveen Rao and Matt Bell, just a 4th place finish is all they will need in this final race of the season to wrap up the championship. So I'm sure they've got the championship on their mind. If they get the win, great. But the bigger prize, of course, is this Prototype Challenge Championship.
Well, think about this, though, Jeremy. In talking to the teams and drivers, I talked to Dakota Dickerson, Dominic Cicero, and they said, hey, it's business as usual for us. You go out, you try to win every race that you can. We don't want to think about all I need to do is finish here, all I need to do there. They really feel like the pressure is on Matt Bell and Naveen Rao. That 64 team can't let the emotion get in the way and say, well, all we need to do is this and all we need to do that is that. They need to focus and do what they have done all season long, and that is being incredibly consistent. You look at Bell and Rao, only one time this season have they been off the podium. They've got 2 wins so far, and they've been on the podium every other time with the exception of a 5th place finish at Road America.
That's right, and that's what they need to do. They need to carry on that momentum. And the same, of course, for Dakota Dickerson. He won last time out. He knows how to win championships. He's won championships in the Formula 4 series and Formula 3 as well. So he's a proven championship winner, is Dakota Dickerson. He will take over that number 54 car for the second half of this 3-hour race.
Well, let me throw this at you, too. There are at least 3, if not 4 other teams that are very capable of winning. Everybody wants to end the season with a race win. Joel Janko, right now, he sits 3rd in the championship. This is his last race ever. He is retiring after this race today. He wants to go out a winner, and we've got 3 hours to get it decided, and we're about to go green as the field underneath the bridge, down the hill, through turn 12, looking for the green. 64 on the pole, the third pole position of the season, and Naveen Rao with a good jump at the start.
He did a very good jump at the start. Also a good run there from the inside of the second row, trying to take over second position is Keith Grant. But I think Stephen Thomas was able to hold on in second place.
Well,
two K2R cars out in front.
Yeah, Dominic Cicero drops to fifth from his fourth place starting position. We talked about the low downforce setting on the 54. It is a very cool day, about 66 degrees here at Road Atlanta, and that means it's going to take a while with that low downforce setting to get these tires up to temperature. And of course, Cicero going to be a little careful right now, making sure that he's got a car to hand over to his teammate Dakota Dickerson, who's trying to win this championship.
That's goal number one, certainly for Dominic Cicero, bringing the car to Dakota Dickerson in good shape, in one piece and in a good position as well. Top 4 or 5 should be fine for him. And then it's going to come down to strategy. This is, as we've been saying, a 3-hour race, so much longer than the usual hour and 45 minutes. So a lot of strategy will come into play. Some teams might be able to make it on just 2 pit stops in this race, but most likely it's going to be 3 for the majority, unless there's a goodly amount of caution periods. But strategy certainly is going to be crucial.
Cicero now back to fifth as Naveen Rao leads the first lap. All over the back, though, is the 11 of Thomas. Thomas with an excellent qualifying run here, his best of the season in second. And talking to him over the weekend and his driver coach Ross Bentley, he has focused so intently over the last year. This is a driver who up until a year ago had never raced a car, and now he's contending for the lead here in an IMSA Prototype Challenge race at Road Atlanta. And hats off to Ross Bentley. He says, Thomas, such a great student. They've driven all kinds of cars, probably 6 or 8 different types of cars he's driven over the last year. And Ross says, I want him to learn something, not how to drive each car, but I want him to learn something from each type of car that he drives, and that builds his resume of knowledge. It's going to make him a better race car driver at this Prototype Challenge class.
A remarkable story, I think, is Stephen Thomas, as you say, just so new to the sport. He really knew nothing at all about the sport about a year ago. So it's been an intense learning curve for him. He's originally from Carl Junction in Missouri, but now makes his home in Venice, California. He's a plaintiff's attorney, so he knows a lot about litigation, but he's learning a lot about race car driving as well. What a super job he is doing. He's all over the back end here of Naveen Rao. Those two running out front, the cars might not look too identical, certainly not identical, but they are teammates.
Well, if you think about the intellect that's in those first 2 cars there, Jeremy, Naveen Rao, I think he's got like 5 different degrees, some of them in things I can't even understand, quantum physics and things like that. And then obviously Stephen Thomas, as you said, a very successful attorney. 2 very smart guys up front, but running third right now, Keith Grant, he and his brother David have qualified well throughout the season. They have two pole positions on the year, and they have come a long way. But I talked to Keith earlier today, and he said, we've got to do better on the second stint. Well, today they get a third stint too. They led at VIR. Both brothers had problems in the final turn onto the front straightaway there. That set them back a little bit and took them back to a 5th place finish after they had been leading in that race. But they have showed extreme pace this year, really good pace, and they're showing it again today, running third, good qualifying effort, and now running third in the order. 4th is that blue and red number 6, Dan Goldberg, who's also been very quick with his co-driver, Rasmus Lind. As we saw Lind appear at Sebring. Look at this, Cicero now trying to take advantage of that low downforce, sneaking into the inside. Goldberg, one-top customer, says, no, not right here, not right now.
Yeah. Not just now, thank you very much indeed. And Dan Goldberg, he didn't have a good qualifying. He was down in the 7th position on the grid, 6th position on the grid, but he made up ground here at the start, made up a couple of positions on that first lap, and he's looking to hold on to it as well in that Motel 6 car.
Well, this is the problem right now for Dominic Cicero. I believe that low downforce setting is going to give him the straight line speed that they talked about, Dakota Dickerson talked about, down the straightaway. But if you try a move, you get offline and kind of out of the sequence, everybody else that has that advantage at downforce is going to take advantage of it. You saw that through the 10A and B complex. Cicero not able to make the move, and it kind of left him hanging out, and all of a sudden, John Brownson, Jerry Kraut, Cameron Castles were right there on his rear wing, and he really had to defend going into turn 1 to hold that 5th place position.
Yeah, some good dicing going on here in the early stages, certainly, but Naveen Rao doing exactly what he wants to do out in the front at the moment. He's just set the fastest lap of the race last time around. First driver to dip below 1 minute 20 seconds, 1:19.4 for Naveen Rao. So pulled out a little bit on that last lap, and that's what exactly needs to do. As you said early on, it's pretty cool here this morning. It's just a 9 o'clock start local time, and it's sort of mid-60s, which is, you know, it does take much longer to bring these Michelin tires up to optimal working temperature in these cooler conditions. So Naveen Rao, I'm sure, just taking it, you know, fairly cautiously for the first few laps. He certainly doesn't want to make a mistake early on.
Joe Robillard now heading up the hill in the number 10, followed by the 33, Lance Wilsey. I believe that was Cameron Castles slipping back 3 positions there. Robillard has gotten by. Wilsey has as well in that white, red, and blue number 33. So I don't know if Cameron Castles has an issue with the 75 right now, but he's not going the right direction, that's for sure. Championships decided today at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta and IMSA Prototype Challenge. Just getting things started, and Naveen Rao doing what he needs to do, leading from pole. Down the back straightaway, Thomas in the 11, still glued to that rear wing of Naveen Rao, but Jeremy Shaw, I don't think he can get quite close enough to make that out braking attempt at the end of the back straightaway. And I guess the other question is too, is he just content to be there right now? Remember, a 3-hour race, we're only 6.5 minutes in. Now, how aggressive are this early on? Or do you just say, hey, I know I've got teammates to hand this car over to, good teammates, and I'm just going to be a little bit patient with it?
Yeah, well, that's a really good question, because Stephen Thomas, he generally drives solo in these races. He doesn't have a co-driver. Because it's a 3-hour race, he has to have a co-driver. That co-driver will be Thomas Merrill, who's been around this sport a long, long time, a very accomplished driver coach. But he hasn't driven the car at all this weekend, Thomas Merrill. But he has done some testing here in the past, so he reckons he's up to speed. But for Stephen Thomas in second position, look, he's never been running this high in the field before. He did lead 1 lap last time out, but that was during the round of pit stops. But generally speaking, he's a sort of 5th, 6th place runner at the last couple of races, just making steady improvements. But this is the first time he's been in a position to challenge for the lead. So it's a tricky situation. I'm sure he'll want to take the lead from a purely personal standpoint, but he's got to look after the interests, I think, of that K2R Motorsports team as well, with his teammate in the lead and looking to win the champion.
So impressed with these first 2 drivers, and really, Jeremy, it's what IMSA Prototype Challenge is all about. Gentlemen drivers, as we call them, bronze drivers, drivers who drive at a professional level, but they don't make their living doing this. So they may be just slightly off the pace of the silver drivers, the professional drivers that run with them. Let's take a look here. That's Cameron Castles in the blue and yellow number 75. And I don't know if that car is just out of balance or the brake bias is off right now, but you see him get a little loose there into the braking zone of 7.
Yeah, that was an interesting moment that Cameron had there, but he's able to keep it under control. Again, he's running at the moment down low in the 10th position. He started in 9th, made up a position at the start, but has lost that position again now. And John Brownson is ahead of him, and also Joe Robillard as well. So, yeah, he's certainly struggling a little bit at this stage in the race. I think it's Cameron Castles in that Performance Tech Motorsports car number 75.
Naveen Rao leads out of turn 7. The top 2, Naveen Rao, Stephen Thomas, the 64, the 11, down the back straightaway now. They're beginning to pull out a little bit on Keith Grant. You cycle back through the 86, Paul LaHaye, Greg Palmer in the 3, Hamilton in the 60, coming into that turn 6 and 7 complex. They make up 12, 13, 14, and Dominic Cicero really putting pressure on the number 6 of Dan Goldberg into that 10A, 10B complex. Remember, Cicero in the 54 really carrying the championship hopes of his teammate Dakota Dickinson as they flash through turn 12. Really over the back of it. Oh, and a problem down in turn 10. That's the 75 and the 33. saw problems for Castles earlier, and now he's got together with Lance Wilsey. Wilsey in the gravel. Jeremy, I think this is going to play into the strategy.
Well, yeah, this is certainly going to bring out a full course caution unless Lance Wilsey can dig himself out of there, which is really unlikely. That's a deep bed of gravel down there at turn 10, 10A. And let's maybe see if we can see what happened now. The incident's already occurred, but it's happened in the braking area. Cameron Castles and Lance Wilsey got together going into that lap. But Wilsey had been ahead of Castles. We just documented that a few moments ago. So one has to presume that Cameron Castles was trying to make a pass to regain that position. But unfortunately, the two of them made contact, and Lance Wilsey backwards into the gravel trap, and does indeed bring out the full course caution. I think, though, talking to some of the teams, in order to make this race available to make it on just 2 pit stops, there's going to be 2 or 3 cautions required during this race. I think this one shouldn't take them too long to get that car out of there and get the race underway again. So I think we're still looking at a 3-stop race for each of the teams. And when the teams make a pit stop during this race, if they're taking on fuel, which is what they need to do, as we talked about on 2 or 3 occasions, most likely 3, then there is a minimum pit stop time. Got a bit of information for you here. The distance to the pit lane is 22,706 inches. Not quite sure why it'd be measured in inches, but it is. But there's a minimum pit stop time, and that's from when the cars enter pit lane, which is just before the right-hand top corner coming into that top pit lane here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, to the pit exit. The minimum time is 105 seconds. That allows then plenty of time to come down the pit lane, make the stop without having to rush to get vital tenths of a second. And the reason for that is this is kind of a semi-professional series, so they don't want the teams spending extra money on perfecting their pit stops. So they've got plenty of time to make the driver change and get the car back out onto the race again without having to, as I say, shave or worry about hundredths or tenths of a second on the pit lane.
Full course caution is out at Road Atlanta and an IMSA prototype challenge. Naveen Rao leads from the pole position. That is going to be important in the run for the championship. But with this caution, Jeremy, I talked to teams and they said if we get one around the 18-minute mark, we may very well come and top with fuel, although we're going to spend that minimum time on pit road that you talked about earlier. We may do that. Others that are going to gamble on more yellow may wait and see what happens. But some teams, I don't know, we're now 13 minutes in, and by the time the field gets around here, it'll be 14 minutes as they get to pit. It'll be interesting to see if anybody takes this.
Yeah, that's a very good question, actually. I'm not sure in the first 15 minutes of the race whether they can. It's certainly in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, cautions within 15 minutes of the start of the race, which this is, the pits would not be open for scheduled pit stops, if you like.
Yeah, it's going to be close.
I don't know whether it is right now, because certainly a lap under caution here takes the last lap was a minute 42 seconds. I think this next one will be quite a bit longer than that. So you probably could come into the pits and serve that 100 with a minimum time of 105 seconds without going a lap down. So it certainly could be very, very advantageous to make a pit stop under yellow flag conditions. But I think this is a bit too early. Well, it isn't really, because if they came in now, they certainly would be able to make it from 2 stops. It would be 3 stops in all during the race, but at least they could get one out of the way under full course caution. But it's certainly going to be fairly close to be able to make that stop and get back on track again without losing a lap.
Well, and it's interesting because once again, when you run through that top group of 5 cars, let's say, even 6 cars there are all kinds of different motives. Everybody wants to win the race. Don't get me wrong there. Naveen Rao, Matt Bell, they want to win the championship. So they're not going to gamble on running out of fuel, that's for sure. Other teams, when you think about it, guys are going to push hard, and they're going to be thinking about how much do we want to gamble. I'll tell you somebody who's gambled all year long is the 9 team, the JDC Motorsports team. John Walko, the engineer there, Jerry Kraut, Scott Andrews, They gambled on fuel at VIR, if you'll remember, and they've cut it close on a pretty regular basis. So are they going to roll the dice? They want race wins, is what they want. They want to end this season with a race win, so they may be willing to gamble.
Yeah, that's right. And Road America too. I mean, that Road America race, I mean, Scott Andrews, they made their pit stop way early compared to everybody else. And Scott Andrews was able to produce some incredible fuel economy and just reach the finish line. You might remember there was a bit of a confusion as to when the checkered flag should have been fallen, and it wasn't, the checkered flag wasn't shown when it should have been. So the cars actually did an extra lap, but the checkered flag should already have been given, and even though he ran out on what was the final lap, Andrews was able to take the victory because the checkered flag should already have been shown. So that was a great example of that strategy working out absolutely to perfection. Running out on the cool down lap of fuel is exactly what you want. Running out with 1 lap to go is exactly what you don't want.
Exactly. Well, I think our question has been answered about strategy and pit stops. Lights out on the safety car. We'll go green this time by, and that's going to negate anyone's thought of diving into the pit lane. Also, hats off to Lance Wilsey. He had that spin in the gravel trap, and we watched him down the front straightaway, shaking that number 33 violently side to side, offline, trying to get any gravel that was in the under tray of that Ligier out of the way, staying offline. Great job by Lance Wilsey. Naveen Rao is going to see if he can continue the great job that he's done on the restart. Stephen Thomas right behind him as the green flies. Big moves down into turn 1. Keith Grant in the 40. That's a good move. That's a strong move, Jeremy.
Yeah, that's the move made by a driver with a lot of experience. Keith Grant has been around the sport a long time and won several championships in the Formula Atlantic Championship, in the FRP Series of Formula Race Promotions, and he's been around the sport for many years, so that was a veteran move there. At the start of the race, he wanted to make sure that there was enough heat in the tyres before he tried any bold moves, but now he's got enough experience to make that move on that first lap. And Stephen Thomas has been caught out a bit here, been passed by another couple of guys, and Dakota Dickerson is trying to go past as well. But of course, let's not forget that Stephen Thomas, he's in that K2R car, teammates with the race leader, and the car right behind Stephen Thomas right now is the car, the number 54 for MLT Motorsports, that is battling for the championship.
And at 11 of Stephen Thomas and the 54, Dominic Cicero, little bump in there into turn 6, but Cicero wisely backs off of that. I'll tell you who was impressive, and Thomas locks up the brakes into turn 10, and Cicero may get a run. Who was impressive there was also Dan Goldberg on that start up the hill. He got by Stephen Thomas as well. So Goldberg now up into third. Thomas kind of back on his heels a little bit after getting pushed into the corner and body slammed a little bit. Great restart. And we talked about the physicality of it as Thomas dropping back a little bit as they head into turn 6. Just a little bump with Dominic Cicero there in the 54. Cicero needs to find that happy place between being aggressive and moving that 54 car forward, but being careful enough that Dakota Dickerson has a car to battle in the championship with.
Yeah, that's the key at this stage in the game. And now Stephen Thomas is not going defensive on this lap. He's kind of focusing forward. He's not going to worry too much about defending that position from Dominic Cicero. At least that's what it looked like going to turn 6 and 7 there. So heads up driving by Stephen Thomas.
Well, and now Jerry Kraut in the mix just behind Dominic Cicero. So Cicero needs to focus forward and backwards, just as Naveen Rao needs to do, because Keith Grant, this 40 car, now really beginning to put pressure on Naveen Rao. We've seen that 40 entry from 47 Motorsports run at the front and lead with both Keith and David behind the wheel. Parker Thompson joins them this weekend, accomplished young open wheel driver. And Keith Grant right now, I should say, showing how strong that team has been all season long. It's continuing here at Road Atlanta.
It is good, isn't it? And both of those two Grant brothers, they've been driving this sport for a long time, and they've had a lot of success. So, I think at this stage in the game, Keith is, he's showed he's had a couple of pole positions already this season, and he wants to show that he can take the lead as well, even if he doesn't qualify on pole position. So he's really putting the pressure now on Naveen Rao.
I think the thing that's interesting as the battle continues for the lead between Rao and Grant, Cicero dropping back from Thomas a little bit now in that 5th place position. And I think, you know, downforce is a blessing and a curse. You take it away, it goes faster, but it also takes longer to get the tires back up to temperature. And I think that last full course caution was just long enough that those Michelin tires cooling down a little bit on the 54. It's going to take Cicero a little bit to get his legs back underneath him, and Thomas has kind of gotten regathered, so he's now moving forward. You've got to make your play. You got to play the cards that you're dealt. And for the 54 team, they felt like they needed that straight line speed to deal with the Norma chassis, and that's why they took that downforce out as Cameron Castles works his way past the number 3 of Greg Palmer. These cars draft reasonably well, Jeremy, and down the front straightaway into turn 1. It's a difficult place to make a move, because even if you get an advantage coming out of turn 10 and flat through turn 12, it's still difficult to make a move into that high-speed turn 1.
Yeah, it is. It's a very fast corner, turn 1. I mean, they're going well over 150 miles an hour into there, and these cars, you know, they're pretty heavy cars. They do have lots of downforce, but simply you know, dab of the brakes into that corner. It's not a heavy braking area, that's for sure. So it is very, very difficult to make a pass out, which is why that move at the restart by Keith Grant on Stephen Thomas was so impressive.
6, Dan Goldberg comes by, and now you look back to this battle between the 74 and the 10. Joe Robillard in the 10, and there beside him, John Brownson in the 74. Good battle, and Robillard gives Brownson plenty of room, make sure that they're not going to get together. And Robillard is another one of these drivers who's had a good season. He's going to hand that car over to Stephen McAleer when they do that change. McAleer will take it to the checkered flag, and McAleer, a driver, I think one of the better young sports car drivers in North America right now, and great big personality, speaks well outside of the car. It speaks volumes when he's behind the wheel.
He does, doesn't he? You're right, Stephen McAleer. He's originally from Glasgow in Scotland. He came over here probably 15 years ago now to race in the Skip Barber School. Had a lot of success in open wheel racing, well, minor leagues of open wheel racing, and then he won the Mazda MX-5 Cup Challenge. You can see a move there. Finally, Dominic Cicero makes that pass on Stephen Thomas. That is for 4th position.
Well, now he needs to protect it down the straightaway. We know the Norma chassis has good straight line speed. We know that they've taken the Aero off the 54, and you'll get an idea of that straight line speed right now down this long back straightaway, close to 165, 166, maybe 167 miles an hour into this heavy braking zone. Cicero, a good job, just kind of parks the 54 there in the middle of the road. Now, if he can keep Thomas behind him and make some hay through 1 all the way to 5 and have a little more distance between himself and turn 7 the next time around, he can begin to focus a little more forward and trying to get that 54 moving towards the front. But Thomas has been so impressive all weekend long. The one thing that drivers have told me about this Norma chassis, though, is the tire degradation seems to be more, I don't want to say exaggerated, but more evident on the Norma chassis than it is on the Ligier. But I guess my question is, Jeremy, if you take Aero out of the car slides around a little bit more, perhaps the 54 may have to deal with some tire degradation as well.
Yeah, that's certainly going to be something they're going to have to keep an eye on. You'll be careful of. Try not to slide the car too much. If you can keep it straight, then that looks after the Michelin tires a lot more. Super battle here towards the back of the field. That's Paul LaHaye in that bright green car, and a big train of cars here. He's kind of in the middle of it at the moment. Down the inside though at turn 6, that is Cameron Castles making his way back up the order, and both have now got past Greg Palmer in car number 3. But this is a super battle towards at the back of the field.
And that's the great thing about Prototype Challenge. You got racing all throughout the field. Greg Palmer has raced here in Porsche GT3 Cup before, racing with his son, and how cool is that? Eric Palmer, 21 years old, gets to go and race prototypes on the weekend with Dad, and that's a great thing. They're going to develop as they work with this Junior 3 racing program. Junior 3, one of the first teams in North America to have the new Ligier chassis, which will run in 2021. We can talk more about that in a bit, Jeremy, but this team has big plans for the future. Hopefully 2 cars in 2021, 2 new cars, and I know the Palmers want to be a part of that. Right now, like I said, you get good racing all throughout the field.
You do. It's tremendous, and you're right. You're talking about the new cars that will come on board for this championship for next season, the second generation LMP3 cars. There's new cars from Ligier and Duquesne, which is the new name for the Norma effort. They've already been racing this year in Europe, those cars, so they kind of got the bugs worked out, they hope. But the new Ligier certainly appears to be a lot more competitive than is this version of the initial version of the Ligier JSP3, and a lot of excitement, I think, about that new car for next year. And you're right, and of course, in the LMP3 cars are also going to be involved next season as a class in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well. So there's opportunities to race not only this generation of car that we're seeing right now, but also the new car as well in both championships for 2021.
9.5 months ago, the season started, the 2020 IMSA Prototype Challenge season, and in 2 hours and 34 minutes, we'll crown a champion. It seems like it has been a long, long time. And this race, just one of 2 endurance races. We start the season with one, and then we'll finish the season here at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta with a 3-hour enduro to crown the 2020 champion. Dominic Cicero in the 54, up to 4th. That's good for his teammate Dakota Dickerson. Dickerson, if he wins this race, if he and Cicero win this race, they need the number 64, Naveen Rao and Matt Bell, to finish 4th or worse in order for Dickerson to have the championship. But as they've said, hey, look, this is not a different weekend for us. We go to every race trying to win it. That's what we're going to try to do here and put it on the top step of the podium. What happens with the 64 happens with the 64. We can't drive that one. We can only drive the 54 that we're in right now. Cicero beginning to take the fight to Dan Goldberg. And this is something that we were talking about just a little bit ago, Jeremy, and that is longer runs. The Ligier seems to have good balance. Now, the 6 of Dan Goldberg in a Ligier chassis as well, but Cicero beginning to really close in. The unfortunate thing for him, though, is he's not getting rid of Stephen Thomas there in the 11.
He's not managed to shake him off at all, has he? You're absolutely right. These are the 2 best placed Ligiers in the field. Number 11 car behind him, that is another Norman. That is Stephen Thomas, who started on the front row, and he's hanging right with these 2. I'm super impressed with Stephen Thomas. I know I've said it several times already, but for somebody with so little experience to show such maturity in this whoops, as we see, as I said that, there he goes, locks up the brakes at turn 7 and loses a fair bit of ground. He's now going to come out under pressure from a veteran driver, Jerry Kraut. This is going to be interesting as they get down towards turn 10, the tight chicane, the left and right. I think probably Stephen Thomas is going to have to defend that position. He's already moved to the left-hand side of the racetrack. A heads-up driving there from Thomas.
Kraut now looks to the inside. He had looked outside, now inside. Nothing happening there, but something definitely happening here. Cars around backwards, and that is not where you want to be. That's the exit of turn 7, looking the wrong direction. Looks like the 47 involved. That's Joel Janko. Janko, 3rd in the championship, and you were talking about drivers that you're super impressed with. He's another one, a veteran. Let's take a look here. The 60 in front of Cameron Castles. And it looks like Janko perhaps goes around on his own. Indeed, he does. These cars do not have traction control or anti-lock brakes. And then Castles gets into the back of the 60 as he slows. So kind of a chain reaction, and Joel Janko unable to get the 47 restarted.
Yeah, wow, that was a great avoidance move there by Cameron Castles, because the car in front of him, which would have been car number 60, that's Bruce Hamilton, he had to spin effectively to make sure he didn't nail that station or the spinning car of Joel Janko, and right behind him was Cameron Castles, who initially unsighted. So when the number 60 car spun out of the way, they're directly in front of him. As we see again here, there's a spin for Joel Janko, and I think it was a kind of a bit of a panic move there for Bruce Hamilton to spin the car, but Cameron Castles, what a great job that was to avoid contact. I mean, that could have been really, really scary. Kind of a head-on accident there. Castles did an excellent job to avoid that contact.
Wow, I think Cameron Castles may have helped Bruce Hamilton spin to avoid the contact. I think there may have been a little check up there by Hamilton, and Castles got into the back of him. But this is so disappointing for Joel Janko. Third in the championship, and as was told to me this morning, he has announced this is his last race. He's hanging up his helmet, and while that's sad to see, he's been so impressive and such a joy to watch, running so strong here this weekend and throughout the season. Like I said, third in the championship, and just really, really impressive running with Kyle Kirkwood and both Jonathan George. He was the 2019 Bronze Cup champion, and he wanted to go out in style. And this car may get refired. They may get it restarted. I don't know if something broke to cause the spin, but just disappointing. And you think about these guys, we talked about it, the, quote, gentleman drivers, Naveen Rao, the Grants, Dan Goldberg, throw in Joel Janko, obviously, Jerry Kraut. These guys aren't driving around on a Sunday drive. They're getting after it, and the lap times they put in are quite impressive, and it's just been a joy to watch. And like I said, I know this is not the way Joel Janko wants to see his final race go. Maybe it'll fire him up and he'll come back and do another one, Jeremy.
Yeah, maybe he will. Certainly, and for his co-drivers this weekend are Jonathan George and Kyle Kirkwood. Kyle Kirkwood is absolutely a star in the making, who has won, well, everything in the junior open wheel ranks over the last few years. He's won the F4 Championship, the F3, USF 2000, Indy Pro 2000. Just a remarkable record for this young man. He's also previously done 4 races in IMSA Prototype Challenge cars. He's won 2 of them with Joel Janko and Jonathan George, or Jonathan George, and he set fastest lap of the race in all 4 of them. Also, Kyle Kirkwood, he'll have a birthday this week. He'll be 22 early next week. He is also making his debut this weekend in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well. He's going to be driving for Jimmy Vassar's AIM Vassar Sullivan team in a Lexus. So this is a big weekend for Kyle Kirkwood. He hasn't driven this car yet this weekend, but I know he's very much looking forward to hopping behind the wheel at the later stage. So good to see that Janko's got that car back up and running again. He'd have lost a couple of laps to the leaders, same as Lance Willsey did with his spin into the gravel earlier on. So there's still going to be somebody for this number 47 team to race with.
Here we go, Jeremy. Pits are open, and I got cars accepting the invitation to come in, the 11 being one of them. Stephen Thomas dives to pit road, as does the 9. That's Jerry Kraut in the 9. He'll come to pit lane as well, and so will the 74. So we wondered who would take that opportunity. John Bronson is in, Jerry Kraut. Now, those drivers have not done their minimum drive time. I wouldn't expect to see any kind of a driver change here because they'll have to get back in later if they were to get out now. But once that fuel probe goes in the car, they are committed to that minimum pit stop.
Yeah, but running under caution here, there should be, I think, enough time for them to complete that minimum pit stop time of 105 seconds, get out back onto the racetrack ahead of the safety car. Then they'll be able to run around to catch up the back of the field before the restart. So certainly this is going to stand them in good stead. However, they're still, from this point in the race, going to have to make 2 pit stops. I believe we've got, 2.5 hours remaining, so there's no way that they can get to the end of the race from here. So they're still going to need to make 2 more fuel stops. If they're not taking on fuel, then they don't need to serve that minimum 105 second time. But if they take on any fuel at all, it's 105 seconds minimum. And if you do that under green flag conditions, you're for sure going to lose a lap. So it's questionable whether this is going to be an advantage or not. But certainly for these teams, they reckon it's worthwhile.
Well, what it does is it opens your opportunities up for the future stops. It moves the time well down the line as to when you'll need to come back in. So it opens up those opportunities and really kind of gives you more hand to play, so to speak, in the future. It was interesting that no one else took that opportunity. I felt pretty sure that the 9 was coming after. Talking to Scott Andrews and John Walco the other day, I felt pretty sure that after a 20-minute or so time elapsed in the race, if we got a yellow, they were going to come, and that was going to give them better opportunities. Jerry Kraut running good lap times. Why would you not bring him, leave him in the car, and go? So they played their hand. They played that strategy. Let's see how it plays out. Naveen Rao down the hill. The second restart here with 2 hours and 25 minutes to go. Rao from the pole. Under pressure from Keith Grant before that full course caution. Now the Michelin tires have cooled down a bit. What do we got?
Well, you're right, Brian, but what with the going back to green right away, those cars did make a pit stop, but still a long way back from the rest of the pack. So they were hoping for another one more lap of yellow before they went black to green flag race. That was kind of backfired. So they're now the better part of a lap down to the overall race leaders.
Well, I think the other thing that this stop has done is it's taken pressure off that man in the 54, Dominic Cicero, because remember, he was under pressure before that full course caution. Now, really, the next car behind him is Joe Robillard, and he has more pace than Robillard does. Right now, he has more pace off of turn 7 than Dan Goldberg. And down the straightaway, that low downforce setting seems to be paying dividends as he pulls away, and he's going to lead Goldberg into that braking zone. Cicero now up to third.
Excellent performance there by Dominic Cicero. He just made a really good exit out of turn 7, got on the power hard and early, and able to take advantage of the slightly slipperier shape of that car compared to the similar Ligier with which he was battling. He's able to make that move quite clearly well before they got to turn 10. But halfway down the straight, he was in front. So great move there by Cicero, up now into the 3rd position.
Well, now, I'm going to take you back a year, Jeremy. Last year, what we noticed was that the Ligier seemed to get its legs underneath them on restarts faster than the Norma chassis did. There had been some aerodynamic changes in the offseason. We didn't really see it as much, but today, with that low downforce setting on the 54 car, it does seem to kind of go back to what we saw last year. He's really strong on these restarts. A little bit of lock up there into 6 off the right front. Not to be unexpected, no drama. It looks a little more daunting than it actually is, but Cicero on that first lap or two after the restart really seems to be able to gain some ground and close the distance between himself and Keith Grant a little bit. And what we saw last year was after about 2 laps, maybe 3 at the most, that advantage became neutralized.
Yeah, so that's certainly something we're going to have to pay attention to later in this race. But here now, having made that move up into the 3rd position, Dominic Cicero, he's not content with that. He wants to get 2nd place from Keith Grant, and Naveen Rao, a really good restart here in his first couple of laps, right up to pace instantly. 118.864 for Naveen Rao last time around. That's only fractions of a second off his best lap of the race so far, which was an 18.801. So really good restart from Naveen Rao, and put nearly a couple of seconds between himself and that 2nd place battle between Keith Grant and Dominic Cicero.
Cicero now hounding Keith Grant through the turn 5 complex, looks to the inside in 6, can't get it done there, but what you can do is steal the attention of the driver in front of you, move around in his mirrors a little bit, see if you can get him to mess up the entry into 7 here and get an advantage coming off the corner. Nothing doing, not this time. Keith Grant solid through 7, gets a good run off, and beginning now to pull away from Cicero, and perhaps that 2-lap, 3-lap advantage after the restart beginning to wane a little bit for Dominic Cicero, but he did a good job there in those laps that he had. He's gotten past Goldberg, he's into 3rd. But it really closes on the brakes down into turn 10 on Keith Grant.
Yeah, and we're now 39 minutes into the race. So next time around, oh gosh, that was a big moment for Dominic Cicero. that was a big save. That car just snapped sideways under acceleration out of that final corner. That's an odd thing to happen at this stage in a race. Maybe he hasn't got a problem with that number 54 car. I think he has, you know. That rear end is really sliding around.
Yeah, it looked unstable there, but does he get on the curb in 12? Cicero turns in, hits the bump, gets on the curb with the right front. That's what upsets the car, and it could just be that Dominic Cicero lacking oxygen right now as he heads up through turn 3 and 4, because that took your breath away. Now he's got to defend over Goldberg and really pinches him down to the inside. There's contact. Cicero's around. He's in the gravel. Can he get the 54 going? He does. And I think that time he pressed just a little too hard with the defense. And I'm not sure that the officials are going to find any problem with Dan Goldberg on that. Cicero's going to move him well to the inside, and Goldberg's there, and Cicero keeps coming down. The contact is made, and around he goes. You can't afford those types of conflicts on the racetrack when you're trying to hand your teammate a car to win a championship in.
Yeah, but from my perspective there, I mean, Cicero made it perfectly clear that he didn't want the other car to come past him, and still Goldberg didn't give it up. He still dived it down the inside awfully late. He wasn't behind, he wasn't alongside him in the braking area. That was not a clean pass, in my opinion, by Dan Goldberg there. Once again, I think the red mist has kind of caught him out. We've seen that several times already this season in that Motel 6 car. And I'd be surprised, I'm sure the stewards will be looking at that. And I'll be quite surprised if they don't take a dim view of it. There's Lance Willsey having another spin as well. And by the way, we just saw the number 9 car make a pit stop, and the number 75. I presume we will see a driver change in each of those cars because the 40 minutes minimum drive time has elapsed. But this is not going to bring out a full force caution this time.
For Lance Willsey.
Wow.
Yeah, up in 3 and 4, and just once again, these cars without traction control and close to 500 horsepower with that 5-liter normally aspirated V8 in the back. If you get a little insensitive with the throttle, easy to get wheel spin and get the car turned around. I'm actually surprised to see that the 9 would pit again, Jeremy, after we just saw him pit. I mean,
well,
I thought
all he needs now is a driver change. He's got plenty of fuel in the car. So he's actually still showed Jerry Krause in the middle of that car, but I'd certainly be surprised. I mean, that because if they didn't take on fuel at this stop, then they can make it as quick as they can do the driver change. They can leave it. It doesn't have to be the minimum 105 seconds, so it'd be a relatively quick stop, much quicker than 105 seconds anyhow, to make that driver change. But the scoring at the moment still shows Jerry Krause at wheel car number 9. So was there a penalty or something? Or, I don't know.
I'm not quite sure.
Yes, indeed there was. Pit lane speed violation for both car number 9 and 4. So that was their previous stops. So that was a penalty stop for both the 9 and the number 74.
Yeah, I was wondering about that because I couldn't for the life of me, with the pace that Jerry Kraut had in the 9, imagine them bringing him back in and doing a driver change that quickly. That costs you time down pit road. He's doing a good job on the racetrack. Why bring him in? So now we know why he got brought in.
Well, the reason for making the stop would be to get the quicker driver at the wheel of that car. So with the minimum drive time completed, it would have made it a long way to go for Scott Andrews. But of course, that any potential benefit there has now been lost.
Nothing lost here for Naveen Rao, out in front, 5 seconds now over Keith Grant after the second full course caution, and still over 2 hours and 15 minutes to go from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. IMSA Prototype Challenge with the championship on the line. We've seen drama early, and I'm sure, Jeremy Shaw, there's plenty more to come.
Indeed, another car that's just made a pit stop is the car number 75, Cameron Castles. He brought that car in from the 6th position, and he has made the driver change. It's Stephen Simpson now aboard car number 75. I think he has lost a lap making that extra pit stop, but it was certainly a much faster stop, like we talked about a little while ago. I'm sure they wouldn't have taken on fuel. It was just a bit in the driver change. So he will lose a lot less time by making that driver change under green flag conditions than would anybody else. who will take on fuel and make the driver change at the same time.
Interesting to see the 10, Joe Robillard, in third. Part of the reason that he's there is because of the problems that Dan Goldberg and Dominic Cicero had with their disagreement going into turn 6 a few laps ago, where both of those cars spun. But I say it's interesting because he's now made his driver time. He really needs to run this tank of fuel out before he comes in and pits, but he's in a good position. Third on the racetrack. He'll hand that car over to Stephen McAleer, and they have such a good relationship. They want to be back doing IMSA Prototype Challenge in 2021. And Joe Robillard, had a great conversation with him yesterday, and he just laughed and he goes, you know what? For the amount of money I'm spending this weekend, I could be anywhere in the world at some world-class resort just relaxing on a beach instead of here with my stomach hurting and being nervous. Isn't it great? He just had this big smile on his face. Isn't it great? He was so nervous. It was right before qualifying. He said, I just love this. Why would I be anywhere else doing anything else? And that's just the attitude that these drivers have. And, you know, they could be doing, a lot of these guys could be doing just that, but they're here and they're driving these beautiful cars. Next year, 30 more horsepower, a little extra downforce to deal with that horsepower. The lap time should be several seconds a lap quicker, and the competition should be just as good. And I think it's really going to attract a lot of eyes. We've talked about young open-wheel drivers driving in the IMSA Prototype Challenge category, because I think for a lot of these young drivers, they look at it and they say, you know, sure, I want to be an IndyCar driver, but the opportunity there is so minimal, and sports cars may be in my future, and this is a great place to come and find a little help in a partner, be in a car together, do some driving, make a name for yourself. You mentioned Kyle Kirkwood, Dakota Dickerson. They have very similar resumes with the championships that they fought and won, Jeremy, and they're both here, both showing what they can do, and they're both very impressive young drivers.
Yeah, they certainly are, and I think this championship is an excellent way to get into prototype racing here. It's relatively affordable. It's not nearly as expensive as many other series. Plus, of course, when you're sharing the driver, sharing the cost with somebody else, you know, that helps as well. That was a big moment. I think that was Greg Palmer there, continuing this battle with Paul LaHaye, number 3 and number 86. Super battle those two have had. Just a pit stop there for the number 6 car. So coming out of 4th position, that was Dan Goldberg. He's handed over that car now to Rasmus Lind, the young Swedish driver, who's another very, very talented youngster. The last couple of years, Rasmus Lind has, still a teenager, has finished second to Kyle Kirkwood, both in the USF 2000 Championship and Indy Pro 2000 last year. So a really talented young man. Kyle Kirkwood, I think, is potentially very, 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 very good. And Rasmus Lind is clearly very, very good as well.
When you start quantifying drivers by the number of varies that you put in front of the word good, you'll know how talented they all are. The 74, John Brownson, still giving chase there to the 86 just in front. And
the guy who's doing a really good job at the moment is Joe Robillard. He's up to 3rd position and closing quite quickly now on Keith Grant, who is losing ground to the race leaders. 10 seconds now between Naveen Rao in the lead of this race in car number 64 for K2R Motorsports and the similar 47 Motorsports Norma of Keith Grant. But Joe Robillard in car number 10, he's right with him. There is this battle now coming on the back straight towards turn 10. The other guy who's charged is Stephen Thomas. He's just set the last 2 laps, set a new fastest lap of the race, 117.8 for Stephen Thomas. The race leaders last time round was a 118.2.
That's an impressive lap time by Stephen Thomas. Joe Robillard as well, and I can't help but think, though, Jeremy, if Keith Grant has a car that's somewhat imbalanced, because I'm looking at his lap times that last lap before that, and he must have made a mistake or had an issue somewhere, and Robillard laying down faster lap times, 6/10, 7/10 of a second quicker than Keith Grant. 74, Brownson has gotten past the 86 of Paul LaHaye, and Brownson still kind of recovering from that moment he had onto the front straightaway a couple of laps ago, and you can see just how hard all these drivers are pushing. There's I think they came out of turn 12 and he kind of got in that dirty air right at the track out of the 86. So the car just got upset a little bit. I'm sure it upset the driver inside the cockpit as well.
Yeah, indeed. Clearly now Naveen Rao has got the message here, because he'd been lapping super consistently around about 1 minute 19 seconds. Each of his last 7 laps, excuse me, were within a tenth of a second of each other. Well, the last couple of laps he's turned an 18.4, and then last time around an 18.2. And now an 18.3, so he's really stepping up the pace here, and that would be because his first pit stop, I think, is just minutes away, probably his only pit stop for Naveen Rao, or he's only the end of his stint, I should say, before handing over the car to Matt Bell, who will complete the race from here.
When you show up at the final race of the season, leading the championship, you do all that you can do to make sure the season ends that way with you and your teammate on top. That's exactly what Naveen Rao has done this weekend here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. He, Matt Bell, his K2R Motorsports team, qualified on pole for Naveen Rao. That was the 3rd pole position of the season for the 64. He has led every lap, and Jeremy Shaw, as you just said, putting in some spectacular lap times, 12.3 seconds ahead of Keith Grant in second the last time by at the line. Naveen Rao has done his part, and as we reach the 50-minute mark of time elapsed, you would think we would see that 64 on pit lane. In the best of times, it's about 54 minutes. Now, we did have 2 full course cautions in there, so I'm thinking 53 to 56 minutes perhaps is about all you can do. And for Naveen now, right now with 12 seconds and change in hand and putting in good lap times, you leave him in until the last minute. And of course, the other thing that does is it opens up your strategy going forward the later you're able to pit. So Rao with clean sailing right now in front of him. Jeremy doing everything that he needs to do to try to bring that championship home to he, Matt Bell, and K2R.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And this is the battle now back as we see Stephen Thomas making a move there on Bruce Hamilton. Nice move that is for the 7th position. Directly ahead of him is that green car of Paul LaHaye, who's having his best run of the season in the 6th position for One Motorsports in that Ligier. Also just ahead of them is Greg Palmer, who's doing a super job also in that Junior 3 racing car number 3 in 5th place.
Thomas now past LaHaye. Greg Palmer will be the next car in his sights, and a problem for Palmer, the number 3 up there at turn 3. He has gone around. We saw Lance Wilsey with a very similar spin, and once again you come off of turn 3 and then you've got to quickly transition the car back to the left without traction control. You get in there and get just a little bit loose, and you try to move some weight to the back end of the car with the throttle and get some rear wheel spin, and there it is. Doesn't take long to get it around.
Yeah, it doesn't take long after I say what a good job he's doing for him to make a mistake either, does it? I'm sorry about that, Greg, but you really were doing a fine job there. It's a shame to punctuate it with a spin, but still, he's had an excellent run.
He has had an excellent run, and they, like I said earlier, he and his son, Greg, having a great time out there, or his son Eric, I should say, having a great time. I can't imagine being able to do that with my kids. How great is that? You can go hunting, you can go fishing, you can go to a ball game together, but to come and race together. And Greg had done some Porsche GT3 Cup stuff, and Eric had done some Spec Miata racing in the SCCA, and Greg said, well, I'm certainly not going to buy 2 Porsche GT3 Cup cars. Let's find a way to use one car for the both of us. And they have found a home here in IMSA Prototype Challenge. Naveen Rao has found a home out front here at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. From the pole, led every lap, 14 seconds now in hand, and we would expect to see him with that pit stop here before long, as good battle. Stephen Thomas working his way back up towards the front after his pit stop. One of those cars that elected to stop early and take advantage of that second full course caution. John Brownson in front of him. That's not for position. Now the 3 is on pit road. Greg Palmer will climb out. Eric looks to be climbing in. are they just putting a water bottle in? No, Greg's going to get in, or Eric's going to get in, I should say.
And also onto pit lane is car number 54 for Dominic Cicero to hand over to Dakota Dickerson with 54 minutes in the book. So I think they are committed to a 3-stop strategy at this point in the race.
And I don't think that's a bad idea at all. I don't think they need to gamble and take any unnecessary chances. There's a racetrack where, yeah, you can get full course cautions because of the gravel traps, especially at the exit of 7 and there in 10A and 10B, but it's not a huge field of cars, 14 cars, so the opportunities are minimized when you have fewer cars on the racetrack. It's not like there are 30 or 35 cars out there, so I think it's a good bet to go ahead and get that done and not risk it. And of course, if you were going to risk it, if you were going to gamble, you needed to do that earlier on. You're now at the end of that stint, so you have to pit now because you're out of fuel, and you've kind of gone ahead and played the hand that you were dealt. You needed to make that decision if you were going to gamble a little bit earlier and see if you could maybe stop on the yellow and then get another lengthy yellow sometime later and only have to do one more stop.
Yeah, exactly right, Brad Till. Yes, on top of the strategy there. And for that number 54 team, MLT Motorsports, all of the teams here, they're allowed 5 sets of Michelin tyres for this entire race weekend. They've been very abstemious with their tyre usage during practice and qualifying, as we see there. That was, I think, yeah, okay, that's the number 86 car. It was just losing a position there to Bruce Hamilton. Finally, they've had a good battle as he brings that car into pit lane. Number 54 car, they've been very abstemious, and as I say, they've saved a fresh set of tyres, anticipating having to make a 3rd pit stop during this race. So they're given a fresh set of Michelin tyres for the final stint. So they're already committed. They were committed coming into this event to making 3 stops. But the good news is they're going to have some fresh tyres, and that could be very, very beneficial in the latter stages of this race.
Lance Wilsey getting together with the 86 of Paul LaHaye there in turn 10. I think the door got opened up. Wilsey said, "I'll take it," and Paul LaHaye had no idea he was there. They pretty much wheel-to-wheel contact at the apex of 10A, and I think LaHaye was on his way into the pit lane anyway, but just got caught out there. Looks like no harm, no foul. The 40 now on pit road. Keith Grant, he'll hand that over to his brother. And I'm wondering where on the racetrack the 64 is right now. I would expect to see him. He's gone a long way, 56 minutes. But so has Joe Robillard, and we know Keith Grant is now on pit lane. Everybody here in the next couple of laps will have done their first pit stop, and really it's the 11 of Stephen Thomas in 4th that's the first car out there who has already made one stop.
Indeed, and the Norma chassis, we talked about the difference between the Norma. Well, there's a big defense there by car number 6, that's Rasmus Lind, trying to keep Stephen Simpson behind him, unable to do so. The 75 car goes through there. Those two are teammates, both from Performance Tech Motorsports, and Rasmus Lind there, the young Swede, losing a place to the South African-born, but now American naturalized citizen Stephen Simpson, a massive amount of experience, of course, in the sports cars. Here is our race leader onto pit lane. 57 minutes completed in this race. What I was going to say before that little interruption was the Norma, because it's a little bit more slippery, has a bit more straight line speed than the Ligier, a little bit less downforce. It is better on fuel consumption than the Ligier. That explains why the Normas can generally go a little bit further on fuel than can the Ligiers.
Well, and for the 54 team, they thought that they might be able to stretch at the MLT guys because they were running less downforce on the 54. But we've already seen that car in, and I think they wanted to get Dakota Dickerson in and see if Dickerson could go out there and put some fast laps in and try to close down any of that gap that had been created by Naveen Rouse. And we'll have to see how that turns out once Matt Bell gets in behind the wheel of the 64. I think for Rasmus Lind, they're doing battle with Stephen Simpson. Perhaps he doesn't know Stephen Simpson very well, Jeremy, because Simpson was having nothing to do with that. Very accomplished race car driver, runs in Michelin Prototype Challenge, also in the WeatherTech Series. Had a stirring drive a couple of years ago to win the Salem 6 Hours of the Glen, and DPI car, and yeah, I think Rasmus Lindh needed to look up the resume of Steven Simpson a little bit before he tried that defensive maneuver into one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Rasmus might have a big future ahead of him, but he's still got a lot to learn about sports car racing. And he's not used to be out there on the racetrack with drivers with a massive amount of experience. Generally, in the lower rungs of the road to Indy ladder, you're around drivers with a similar amount of experience. So he's certainly not used to battling someone with the vast experience of Steven Simpson. Now, he's been there and done that in his very, very strong career.
Absolutely, and one of the true gentlemen in the paddock, and as I said, had a stirring drive at Watkins Glen, is very fast in anything that he gets in, and kind of went to school, or took Rasmus Lindh, I should say, to school a little bit there in turn 1 just a couple of laps ago. Coming out of turn 7 the last time by, the 74, John Brownson with a bit of an issue as Stephen Thomas goes by. Thomas, once the number 10 car comes to pit lane, we should see him move to the lead as Dominic Cicero, or as I should say, Dakota Dickerson, now down the front straightaway in the 54. Be interesting to see how this plays out with Matt Bell.
Yeah, so out in the lead now is Joe Robillard in car number 10. We'll be expecting to see him onto pit lane very, very shortly after a very good first stint in that Robillard Racing Norma chassis car number 10. He will hand over the car to Stephen McAleer. Now, having made a pit stop, the first of the drivers to have made a pit stop already is Stephen Thomas in second position. And he's got about how much? I'll have to wait till they come across the line this time, but next on the road I think should be, well, everybody else is either in the pit lane. Those are the only 2 cars that have not yet made, excuse me, the only driver not to have made a pit stop so far are the number 10 car and also the number 60 of Bruce Hamilton. Oh no, he's in pit lane now, so he is pulled out of the
Jeremy, Joe Robillard, yeah, Robillard has to pit this lap, I would think.
Very soon, certainly. Yeah, I mean, we talked about before that the Normas have certainly, they are very good on fuel consumption, and I think that might explain why Joe Robillard was being sort of conservative early on, particularly with those 2 full course cautions. I'm sure he's trying to stretch this fuel as long as he can in order that they can make just this race on just 2 pit stops to, I think, what would be everybody else's 3. Yeah. The kind of thing.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, he's putting in good lap times. He's just a couple of tenths slower than Stephen Thomas is. But when you go back to the Dakota Dickersons, he's about 6 or 7 tenths of a second off of them, as Lance Wilsey down pit lane, he was just in the pit. So I don't know if he had a penalty or what. Matt Bell down through the S's, and as I was saying, we're going to have to wait and see how this all settles down. Now, I've said Matt Bell, the 64 was on pit road. I don't know if they didn't change the driver ID, but Naveen Rao still on my timing and scoring being shown in the 64, Jeremy.
Is he really? Wow. Yeah, he is. You're right. Well, he's certainly done a fantastic job out in the lead of this race, no question about that. It could be. I'd certainly be surprised if they didn't make the driver change. But look, as I say, Naveen, he put this car on the pole position. He's done an absolutely excellent job this season, and all they need right now is a consistent run to finish. They don't need to win this race. And with the problems for number 54, Dakota Dickerson has made his pit stop and driver change in car number 54, but he's down in the 9th position. So for him to come all the way through to win the race, that's going to be a tall ask from there. And if the 54 car does not win the race, then the 4th place is all the number 64 car needs. No, it's now showing as the driver change has been made. So it is Matt Bell at the wheel of 64. But come what may, they're doing an excellent job. And here now is our race leader, Joe Robillard, into the pits.
Yeah, they extended their fuel mileage farther than any other team out there, and I don't know if that was a condition of the yellows or if they just were going to leave Joe in because he was turning good lap times and just run him to the absolute end of the stint, which opens up further strategic opportunities if there were other yellows that were out there. But anyway, you look at it, Stephen McAleer will now climb on board the 10. And as you said, Jeremy, it's a pretty lengthy minimum time here on pit road.
Yeah, 105 seconds it is. So you're right. It is a long time. But here is now Stephen Thomas. He's out in the lead of this race. He's got a huge margin over the rest of the field. And the reason for that is because he made his fuel stop under yellow flag conditions. He came out a long way behind the rest of the pack because we went back to green just after he had made his pit stop. He hadn't been able to close up onto the tail end of the field. But even with the deficit there, his second pit stop, which he made, well, he hasn't made the second pit stop. So because everybody else has had a much longer pit stop under green flag conditions, he is now out in the lead of this race, is Stephen Thomas in car number 11. And he will be able to go probably another, I have to figure this out. What was that, 30 minutes? Probably another 20 minutes or so before he needs to make a pit stop. So he can now concentrate on running fast laps at the front of the field and really enjoy himself in the lead of this race. He also has set, well, he had set the fastest lap of the race. That's now been retaken by Matt Bell in car number 64 already.
It's going to be interesting to see where McAleer comes out in this order, because right now I'm trying to do the math in my mind and find the 64 car on the racetrack. Remember, Joe Robillard had done a good job, was putting in good lap times, and it had extended the lead over the 64 in my mind to over a minute, maybe a minute and a half. And so I'm like, I don't know, Jeremy, I'm confused. You're better at looking forward through all of this than I am. It's Thomas, Bell, and McAleer as it's shown on timing at this point.
Sorry, what was the question?
No, I was just trying to figure out where Stephen McAleer was going to come out, because, you know, with that long pit stop, you lose so much time, and to me, I'm a lot better to just wait for a couple of laps and let it all settle down before I can figure out where they are. I can't tell the future like you can by looking at this timing.
Yeah, no, but by making the fuel stop there, you're gonna lose. It's a minimum 105 seconds on the pit lane, but you're going to lose more time relative to somebody who stays out on the racetrack because of slowing down to come into the pits and speeding up again after the pit stops. So you know, that's the main reason why Stephen Thomas has such a big lead right now. But Matt Bell in second position in car number 64 has just once again set a new fastest lap of the race, 1 minute 17.405. He's still somewhere away from his own lap record that he set last year at 1:16.7. That's Scott Andrews. Excuse me, Scott Andrews set the fastest lap last year, the lap record, at 1:16.7. Andrews now is at the wheel of the number 9. No, he's not, is he? Because Jerry Kraut hasn't made his pit stop in car number 9. So it's still Jerry Kraut running in the number 9 car in the third position. Still yet to hand over that car to the young Australian. Still say young, he was young. He's not quite so young now, is he, Stephen Andrews? He's been around this sport a long time. Time flies, doesn't it, when you're having fun? But Jerry Kraut now running in third position. Be quiet.
John Brownson falls victim to Steven Simpson and Rasmus Lind as they dive into turn 12, and Lind now has just latched onto that rear wing of Steven Simpson. Perhaps he's saying, okay, well, that guy that got by me must know what he's doing. I think I'll follow him a little bit. And this, I was wondering about this, the 10 car. Stephen McAleer had just climbed behind the wheel, and I noticed the group of cars heading into turn 6. And McAleer did not have the pace. The 74 now around up in turn 4, and there is something amiss with the number 10.
Yes. That's a shame.
I had noticed him, Jeremy, in the back of a shot after his pit stop. It was after he had been released, and something was wrong. He was off pace, and it looks like they're going to look at the left rear, and now the right rear wheel looks loose. I just saw a crew member move it. and there was a lot of movement on it, and the wheel looked loose. I saw the crew member grab it, and the wheel itself wobbled. Now they'll go and see if they can get it sorted, and that is just heartbreaking as McAleer now pulls away. But that's his experience. He immediately knew something was wrong, and he knew it was in the rear of the car, because as soon as the car stopped, that's where the crew went. He just said something's not right, something's not proper in the rear of the car, and they found it pretty quickly. But that's still a long time down pit lane, and that's going to set them well back.
Yeah, that's really disappointing for that team, because they've been running so well up until there's a spin for number 74 car. That's Mr. Excitement, John Brownson, spinning that car around as well.
There's the 6 heading through turn 6, Rasmus Lindh, trying to stay up with Steven Simpson, and I think getting caught in that traffic kind of backed them off just a little bit. And this 3-hour race format, I don't think you can get in a hurry. You can't press. You need to be patient. Perhaps that Robillard Racing team just in too big of a hurry to get tires changed. They did not get that right rear on tight for Stephen McAleer, and that cost them dearly. But for Stephen Thomas, another one of these guys, Jeremy, you and I talked about this early on, a man who does not make his living driving race cars. Very impressive indeed right now, turning good lap times. They always say if I can be within a second a mile of the pro driver in the car, then I'm good. So there's a 2.5 mile racetrack, so if I can be within 2.5 seconds of the pro driver, I'm doing good. And right now, Stephen Thomas well within that delta to Matt Bell, who's behind him, who's one of the best in the business in one of these cars. Matt Bell, in fact, running in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship this weekend in a P2 car.
Yeah, he is, that's right. That's going to be interesting. And here is the number 10 car on pit lane.
Okay, is that a penalty?
Is it just leaving? No, he's coming back.
No, there's something's not right with the
yeah.
It's not staying tight for some reason.
Super disappointing for that team.
On the previous stop, when the tire man went to the right rear, he moved the tire and the whole tire moved, and I don't know if it's a gun thing or the wheel nut for some reason is not, it's staying on the axle obviously because the keepers are keeping it there and not allowing the nut to come off and therefore the wheel to come off. But for some reason, it seems like that wheel nut is loosening up a little bit on the right rear of the 10. Jerry Kraut down through the S's, the 40, David Grant just behind him. The Grant brothers, Keith Grant, David Grant, sharing that car with Parker Thompson this weekend. And Jerry Kraut is another one of those guys. Jeremy, we were just talking about it. I told him yesterday, I think the best drive I've seen Jerry put in, both in the open wheel racing that I've watched him do over the years and the sports car racing, was at Sebring. He was magic at Sebring. Really, really showed what he is made of. Just the nicest guy in the world, quiet as can be, but speaks volumes when he's in the car. Right now, having a good run with David Grant. Grant not able to do anything with him, even though they're both in that Norma chassis. And when Jerry Kraut hands that car over to Scott Andrews, Andrews is definitely a speedster.
Yeah, the lap record holder at a 1:16.7. By the way, Matt Bell continues to set new fastest laps. He's done 4 times in the last 5 laps. Matt Bell, he's got it down now to 1:17.198. Last time around, that's it. He's in second position overall at the moment, still almost 40 seconds behind the race leader, Stephen Thomas, who's stretching his fuel. Of course, he's on much older tires now, and he's lapping last time around at 1:18.8 for our race leaders. He completes lap 50 in this 3-hour race. We've got 1 hour and 46 minutes remaining.
So it'll be interesting to see Bell being shown as pitting on lap 39. So if you figure that you can get 39 laps out of a tank of fuel, then we should see in about 10 laps Stephen Thomas come to pit lane. It's the thing, when you get these cars on different fuel strategies, they're going to be all mixed up until everyone makes their final stop. Then you'll have a much better idea of what the true running order to the finish is going to be. Right now, things just a little discombobulated with the different pit stop strategies. But for Dakota Dickerson and Dominic Cicero in the 54, definitely not sitting where they want to be, Jeremy. They're being shown back in 7th. They need to win this race. 64 needs to finish 4th if Dakota Dickerson has any hopes of winning this championship. But we are far from over. Still an hour and 45 minutes to go. In fact, in 25 seconds, we'll be at a normal sprint race distance for Prototype Challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we're watching here Dakota Dickerson dicing with a car. This is not a battle for position on the in the overall standings. Is that the Volvo racing car behind him? Car number 60. Not quite sure. It's awfully difficult because we're not able to see the cars on the racetrack. It's 47, is it? Okay, fine. So that's Jonathan George, who's 3 laps down to the race leader. He's a couple of laps behind the number 55 car. Jonathan George turning some pretty good laps at this stage. He's a little bit quicker than Dakota Dickerson. They're lapping pretty similar lap times. 1:19.0 for Dakota last time around. That's only a couple of tenths away from his best lap of the race. He has got a little bit quicker already than Dominic Cicero, but he's struggling here to keep that car that is several laps behind him.
Well, I guess my question, Jeremy, is, I mean, Jonathan George is a very accomplished race car driver. He's very quick. One of the best coaches around, does some coaching with IndyCar drivers, sports car drivers, you name it. If you're Dakota Dickerson, and obviously George has gotten past him now, I was going to say, how much do you fight with him? He's multiple laps down. He's faster than you are. You might be able to get a little help with the toe down the straightaways. So, you know, that's a fight that's not worth it at all. And I think Dakota Dickerson knew exactly that. And when George made the move to the inside and turn 10, he was like, fine, go right ahead.
Yeah, right. You got to pick your battles, haven't you? Out on the racetrack. There's no point in fighting with somebody that really is inconsequential at the end of the race. Certainly that would be the case now between number 54 and number 47. So there's no point in defending that position. Indeed, Jonathan George has gone past, and that would be just fine for Dakota Dickerson at this stage in the race.
Steven Simpson in the 75, now up to 5th, and Rasmus Lind. This is the way these two cars have run since the pit stop. And I think Rasmus Lind has decided that he's just going to stay in the wake of the 75 and let Steven Simpson do the heavy lifting of moving the cars out of the way and run both of those cars out of Performance Tech Motorsports. And Rasmus Lind, co-driver Dan Goldberg, has put in and had quite the season after joining with Lind. They had a 6th, a 2nd, a 9th, and a 3rd. So they've had 2 podium finishes in the 4 races that they've run together. And I really think that having a driver like Rasmus Lind join you, it elevates a guy like Dan Goldberg. It pushes him a little bit farther. And Joe Robillard said the same thing about Stephen McAleer. He said, you know, I love this format where we're able to run with these young silver drivers. And he said, he pushes me. You know, he pushes me not only on the racetrack, he pushes me with my fitness. And it sounds silly, but he keeps me younger. I said, how many people say no to you at your office, Joe? And he said, nobody. And I said, how often does Steven say no to you? And he said, all the time. All the time. He's one of the few people that can boss me around a little bit. And I think that's great for these guys to come in here and realize that someone does it better and that they can learn from them. And if you've got an open mind, it's going to make you better. And that's exactly what McAleer and Robillard have going on. I'd say Rasmus Lind, Dan Goldberg, the same thing. And really a lot of these driver pairings up and down.
Indeed, we just saw the number 54 car, Dakota Dickerson, putting a lap on number 3 car. Here, though, this is a 4th place car, or was the 4th place car, Jerry Kraut. He'd just been lapped You might have noticed coming down into the turn 10 chicane on that lap by the race leader, Stephen Thomas. And Stephen Thomas would be kind of caught up behind Jerry Kraut for a couple of laps, lost a fair bit of ground. His last lap time was a 1:21.2 for the race leader, Stephen Thomas. He had been doing 18, so that cost him a lot of ground. But now Jerry Kraut is into the pits. He, of course, had that drive-through penalty earlier on after coming to the pits early because he was going too fast on the pit lane. There is a speed limit in pit lane for safety reasons. He exceeded that, had a drive-through. Now, though, he's handing that car over finally to Scott Andrews, the Australian driver, will take over car number 9. It's hard to believe now that Scott Andrews, he's 30 years of age now. Incredible. But he's a very talented guy. He still is the lap record holder here. But he's only got about 3 or 4 tenths of a second now over Matt Bell, who has set the fastest lap in this race, a 1:17.1. Continues to pound out really, really quick laps. A 1:17.4 last time around for Matt Bell. He's got the gap down, though, from over 40 seconds down to 27 seconds. Of course, different strategies been run by the top 2 cars in the race, number 11 and the number 64. Number 11 car, he has made 1 fuel stop under yellow, and I think he should probably be in the pits now fairly soon to make his 2nd fuel stop of the day. There's a spin for the 3rd position car of David Grant.
Yeah, you know, and it's just unfortunate. I'm not exactly sure what happened there, but in speaking with them earlier, they were saying, we got to get our second stints better. We got to get our second stints better. That's what's cost us. Well, it just cost David Grant. I don't know if it's going to cost him a position. We'll have to see. But teammates, Rasmus Lind, Steven Simpson, down the back straightaway side by side. And Rasmus Lind is going to have the inside for the braking zone down at turn 10. But they also have 2 cars in front of them. They're a little bit slower. Who can use the 86 as a pick? Steven Simpson, probably discretion before valor there, and says, you know, I don't think I'm going to fight too hard on this, as Rasmus Lind looks to the inside at the apex of 12. Nothing doing there, and that may give Simpson the run down to turn 1. Can't close up there on Lind, so Lind through using that heavy braking down into turn 10, and now is stuck up behind the 86.
Yeah, number 40 car of David Grant, he was trying to stay on the lead lap. He was right at the tail end of the lead lap. So I don't know what happened. I don't think we saw what happened to him, but he is off the lead lap. He is behind this battle between the number 6, who's trying to put a lap on number 86, driven now by Chip Romer, making his debut in this championship. Chip's got a lot of racing experience in all sorts of different, well, not only cars, but also boats. He's turned some ridiculous high-speed boat runs in various catamarans, better part of 200 miles an hour, so he's clearly fairly brave.
That's just no.
Is brave the right word there, Brian?
I mean, I don't know if brave's the right word or not, but just no. I mean, fast boats scare me a lot. A lot. Rasmus Lind getting past Romer, and that's going to allow him up into the 3rd position. Steven Simpson just behind him. Lind able to use some traffic and a good run off of turn 7 just a lap ago to get past his teammate. Still Stephen Thomas out in front. So impressive throughout the season, but what we've seen out of Stephen Thomas is just gradual progression throughout the year, and he's gotten better and better and better. Started with an 8th place finish, then a 10th, then a 12th, then a 6th, and then a 6th again at Mid-Ohio, and then his best qualifying of the season here. There is a progression that is easily witnessed for Stephen Thomas. We've seen it all year long. It's the 74, John Brownson on pit lane. Thomas, though, I would expect to see him here on pit lane pretty shortly, Jeremy.
Yes, I agree. I think sometime in the next couple of 3 laps, most likely. He made his pit stop about half an hour into the race. We've now done an hour over an hour and a half. So yeah, I would expect him in pretty soon here. And here he comes right now.
I was going to say he might be able to get 58, 59 laps out of it. Would have completed 58 this time as he goes across the line. So time to bring that 11 in, get it topped up. I'm sure Thomas Merrill will climb behind the wheel. That will move Matt Bell into the lead. It's where the 64 car started. Naveen Rao put it on the pole, and Naveen Rao, Matt Bell, sights firmly set on the championship as they have been all season long.
Really impressive run here by Stephen Thomas, wasn't it, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, it really was, Jeremy. We've talked about his progression, and I mean, you've driven race cars. You certainly have studied race car drivers. You're an encyclopedia of knowledge, and I just find it impressive. You think back to drivers that you've seen do that kind of a job, that kind of a progression. Remember, it was only a year ago that he started racing at all, and hats off to every bronze driver that's in the field. We talked about the prowess of many of them, but it's just been fun to watch that progression throughout the season.
Yeah, it really has, and he has an number 54 car. He's being lapped by, that's number 64, isn't it? So,
yeah, that's not what we want to see. Dakota Dickerson cannot be happy to see that.
That's with half the race down, and he's now a lap behind his championship rival, it's not ideal by any means.
Well, and you look through, and we talk about consistency and speed, and the 64 has had both. As we said at the very beginning of this show, they've had one victory, but they've only been off the podium one time. You look at Dakota Dickerson, he's had 2 podium finishes, one of those being a victory. So a victory, 1 other podium finishes, and then 2 fourths. So nothing to be ashamed of. They've never finished out of the top 5, but it's just been those couple of steps on the podium throughout the year that have made the difference. A point here, a point there, a position here, a position there. And he had closed the championship down a little bit after VIR and Mid-Ohio with the win at Mid-Ohio, but they could never really shake the 64. Look at this, Steven Simpson returning the favor of Rasmus Lind, gets the pass done down in turn 10A, and Lind will take it a lap or 2 and see if he can get it back. But as I was saying, Dakota Dickerson and Dominic Cicero just never able to shake, it seemed like, the 64. If they finished 4th, the 64 finished 5th. You can never kind of finish where they finished on the podium and 3, 4, 5 positions down the order was the 64. The 64 just consistent all year long. Hats off to Naveen Rao, Matt Bell for doing the driving, but also have to give congratulations to the KTR Motorsports team for doing such a good job. I'm not handing them the championship yet by any stretch of the imagination. It's just been a very, very impressive season so far for the 64.
Yeah, very much so it has. And Naveen Rao, he's only been racing for a couple of years, so he's done a really good job as well. There's number 10 car still struggling for Stephen McAleer, and he's going to bring that car into pit lane one more time. Just a quick note here that Scott Andrews, the track record holder, he has reset the fastest lap of the race. He's a couple of laps. No, he's only 1 lap down, I think, to our race leader. Maybe it's 2 laps down. I have to wait and see where they are on the racetrack, having taken over from Jerry Cloud. But he has just set the new fastest lap of the race, a 1:16.984 for Scott Andrews. So he's the first guy in this race to get below 1:17. In fact, there's only 2 drivers who have been in the 17s. Matt Bell, a 17.1, and over the last couple of laps, Thomas Merrill turned a 17.8 as well. Nobody else has been below 1:18.
When you think about the experience that Scott Andrews has, we talked about it earlier, Jeremy. He has a lot of time in these LMP3 type cars racing in Europe and both here in the United States. So he has the experience, and now he has the fast lap time, 16.7 last time by.
This battle for second place is really, really good. It's been back and forth, hasn't it? Two teammates, of course, so they're gonna, they know they're not in contention for the win here unless something really weird happens to number 64, a full minute behind in second positions. But so they're not challenging for the win. They're going to give. I think they're going to be respectful to each other. This is the first time with this team for Steven Simpson. So his best result of this so far was in the first round of the championship at Daytona, when he position. In a super run by that crew here, this Ken Campbell has, and
his teammates down through the S's into turn 5, and they've taken turns there at the point. The great thing is for Performance Tech, they've got 2 cars on the podium right now. Still an hour and a half to go from Road Atlanta in the season finale. And absolutely glorious weather. It's been a difficult season for the teams, the drivers, crews, and certainly the fans. We thank everybody for being here this weekend under such difficult conditions, and great racing going on in IMSA Prototype Challenge. That is what makes this series so attractive. And Jeremy, as we look to the future, new cars next year, an IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship, just as we've seen this year, is on tap. It's in store, as the 75, I believe, has dived to pit lane. But the other great thing is we're going to see an LMP3 class in IMSA WeatherTech, and that should bring some new teams, new drivers into the WeatherTech Championship, and some great racing as well. Some of these teams and drivers able to now run these Prototype 3 type cars at the Rolex 24 and other great events throughout the season, as Steven Simpson now rolls to a stop.
Indeed he does. So Simpson then in the pit, he gives up a second position now to make this pit stop. This will be the second pit stop out of 3 for this number 75 car. We're just almost exactly halfway through this 3-hour race. We've just completed half distance in this race. So still a long way to go. Of course, anything can happen, but this is the car was already more than a minute down to our race leader, Matt Bell. And this, of course, is going to drop them further behind as well. But it's still been an excellent performance by this team. They're going to put some fresh Michelin tyres on this car for Steven Simpson. There's no rush there on the refueling. You have to make it, as we said earlier on, a minimum time of 105 seconds from pit in to pit out. Back out onto the racetrack, though, Matt Bell continues to lead this race.
And it's
That's
interesting.
The third place car directly ahead of him on the racetrack, isn't it?
I think it may be. I was going to say, Jeremy, Bell seemed to kind of answer the lap times that were being put in by the Scott Andrews and so on and so forth. He had gone a little bit quicker. Now he's gotten caught up behind the 40 of David Grant and slowed back down a little bit. But impressive lap times by Scott Andrews. We talked about that. Matt Bell running consistently in the low 18s, high 17s when he has open traffic. Now the 40 of David Grant holding him up a little bit. And Bell, a very experienced race car driver, very fast race car driver, knows that the championship really is on his shoulders right now. They've got a lead. They know that their nearest competition in the championship is back and forth. So they're in the catbird seat. He doesn't need to be too aggressive. He needs to be smart and take opportunities where they're given and not force anything here for the next hour and 27 minutes. That may be easier said than done at times, though, I think.
Yeah, that's a good point. He doesn't need to extend himself here. These are pretty much identical cars. They're both Norma M30 chassis. Matt Bell running for K2R Motorsports, David Grant for 47 Motorsports. So 2 different teams, but I'm sure pretty close, pretty similar setups on these cars. And we've seen how fast David Grant has been in the past. He's running laps consistently in the low 1 minute 19s. And Matt Bell, of course, is capable of going a couple of seconds quicker than that because he's already turned a best lap of 1:17.1. But he's going to be awfully difficult to make a pass on a very similar car for the race leader, Matt Bell. It's going to be, there's no point in taking any risks here for the race leader, Matthew Bell.
And it's interesting, he's moving around a lot in the mirror. And the other thing you want to make sure of is that if the car in front of you has a problem, you don't get caught up in their mistake, in their problem. So you got to press hard. I think the other thing is, one of the most difficult things for a race car driver is to kind of throttle back a little bit, pardon the pun. You want to stay focused. You want to stay on that razor's edge the entire time and stay in the game. If you let your mind wander at all, you can make a mistake at 160 plus miles an hour into a braking zone. A small error can cost you greatly, and I think Matt Bell played it perfectly that time. Put the pressure on the car in front and just said, hey, I'm here. I don't want you to screw up. I don't want you to make a mistake and take me out, but I want you to know that I'm going to be coming by at some point in time. Got it done easily there into turn 10. Matt Bell now empty racetrack in front of him, and that's what he wants to see.
Yes, so patience paid off there for Matt Bell. Good move. And he's now got clean sailing in front of him. Meanwhile, he's a couple of laps down to Matt Bell, but Scott Andrews has set a new fastest lap of the race. Not only that, he's beaten his own lap record, a 1:16.698 for the Australian. Car number 9 is Scott Andrews.
That's just an amazing lap time, and you think that the racetrack would be starting to get a little bit faster, Jeremy, as the surface temperature begins to heat up a little bit. We still have nice cool air for those engines to breathe, but now the surface temperature heating up a little bit, going to give you a little better grip, and everything really playing into the driver's hands as far as having a good car underneath them. If you had a good balance before, the car should just get better and better as we get just a little bit more track temperature. Matt Bell across the line one more time. An hour and 24 minutes to go. The season finale of IMSA Prototype Challenge from Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta, up the hill, trying to work his way through traffic. And as the leader, as the championship leader, this is where you want to be careful. One of the most treacherous parts of the racetrack, down through the S's into turn 5. And Bell carrying the championship on his shoulders to the checkered flag. As I said, just an hour and 23 minutes now to go. Every pass that you make needs to be definitive. You need to make sure that that other car knows that you're there and you're going to make it work. Now he's got David Grant in front. I believe it was actually Jonathan George that he was working on a little bit earlier, trying to make that work. But right behind him, one of the fastest cars on the racetrack, and that's the number 9, but a problem in turn 1.
Yeah, Chip Romer, one of the cars.
Yeah, so the 86 involved, that's Romer. And I didn't see the other car at the top of the hill. Let's take a look. And this is what I talk about being involved in somebody else's problem. It was Romer with the spin, and then the trailing car nowhere to go. The car is really bound up with the compression there in turn 1, and it's hard to make any kind of significant throttle or steering adjustment there without upsetting the car, and that is exactly what happened. I didn't get the number on the trailing car, but that car spinning back into the inside, making contact with the wall, and you can see part of the under tray out there, what we call the cheese wedges, those triangular shaped pieces of the under tray that sit behind the rear wheels, have left the car, because I think he kind of swiped that back end across, and there I think it's the 60 that was involved.
Yeah, okay. It was. You know, that there's all of a sudden over the last few races, a few cars have changed their colour scheme. It's sort of difficult now to pick some of them apart. It included the race leader 64. I was keeping quiet there because I wasn't 100% sure it wasn't the race leader that got involved in there. But no, indeed, I think it was Tristan Vidas, a young Estonian who's kind of a protege of Estonian-born Tony's Chasm, that will take over this Welver Racing car number 60 for the final stint. And poor Tristan there there. He really had nowhere to go with that spinning car in front of him. You're flat out committed through turn one. It's a super fast corner, really, really tricky. And this is going to bring out the full course caution.
Yeah.
Right before the caution period came out, the number 6 car of Rasmus Lind was on pit lane. The question is now, how much time is that going to cost him? I think he's going to come out, make his be able to remain in the 3rd position, but he is going to be a lap down. I think now we've only got one car on a lap on its own. That is our race leader, Matthew Bell, in car number 64. Lap clear of everybody else, led by David Grant in car number 40. Number 54 car of Dakota Dickerson now up into 3rd position.
Yeah, I was afraid that we were going to see that with the debris that was on the racetrack, and there are large pieces of debris there in turn 1 and pretty much on line where you want to run. The other thing is the 60 shedding body parts as it went around the racetrack as well. A pretty large piece came off on the front straightaway as he came through turn 12 that last time by. Felt pretty strongly that the officials were going to need to go get that taken care of. And damage on Andrews, number 9, the left front. Some damage there. The dive plane has been ripped off. I didn't see where that might have taken place.
Well, it hasn't slowed him down at all. It doesn't seem like he's set a new lap record just a few laps to go, unless this contest has happened since then. Yeah, there is clearly there's a gaping hole in the left front of that number 9 car.
All right, now this is going to be interesting. So we've got the full course caution, and I don't really see anybody in the order that you would think needs to pit anytime soon. The 86 and maybe the 3, but those cars really not in contention. So I look at it, and with Matt Bell with a 1-lap lead now, that becomes very problematic for the 54. But at the same point in time, if the 64 has any kind of problems at all, then they can actually take a little bit of time to come to pit lane. If you had a piece of bodywork that was loose, whatever the case may be, you've got that that lap to deal with.
That's right for number 64 car. I mean, it's a lap ahead of everybody else. So what he could do now is if he makes his pit stop once the pits are open. I'm not sure they've been opened yet, but if he makes the pit stop now, under yellow, he should be able to complete that pit stop and still be ahead of everybody else. But with an hour and 20 minutes remaining in this race, he will not have enough fuel unless there's another extended caution period. He will not have enough fuel to get to the end from here. So I don't think there's really much point in making a pit stop now.
It's interesting. They're about, I mean, when you think about it, 39 laps or whatever is what you can run. So 78 laps is about the max. So they're within 6-7 laps of where they can run. Obviously, this yellow is going to extend that a little bit. So it'd be interesting to see. I think you're right. I think he could make the stop and not lose a lap.
Yeah, but as I say, he's still going to need another stop in any case.
Anyway. Yeah.
For fuel, so everybody, as is everybody, the entire field is going to have to make one more pit stop. The number 6 car, talked about the fact that came into the pits just before we went yellow. Unfortunately, that's not worked out for them because the caution was. If the caution had been called right away, that might have worked out for them. But in fact, that car is now 2 laps behind the race leader. So number 6 car comes out in the 8th position, having made its second stop of the day, but is now 2 laps behind the number 64 car, which leads the race. So we've got 1 car on the lead lap, 64, then 1 lap down, number 40, number 54, number 11, and number 60. Tristan Vidas stays just 1 lap down despite that incident at turn 1. 2 laps down are Scott Andrews in car number 9, Stephen Simpson in car number 75, Rasmus Lind rejoins then in the car, just made a pit stop, car number 6, teammates to Stephen Simpson, and who also made a pit stop a few laps ago as well, by the way, number 75 car. That was in about 3 or 4 laps before the full course caution period came out. So number 75 and number 6 then will resume back to the start. Still that down as well as 9, 75 and 6. pitching back.
Dominant the 64 has been all weekend long. The pole, Naveen Rao led every lap that he was behind the wheel. Now Matt Bell out in front with a 1-lap lead over second place. So 64 doing exactly what they need to do to try to capture this 2020 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship.
Eyes on the battle there for that's Rasmus Lind in car number 6, the kind of teal or blue and red Motel 6 engine for Performance Tech Motorsports. Right behind him on the road, I think that's Wyatt Schwab in car number 74. See, there's a whole bunch of cars now. They've got very similar colour schemes, so it's actually tough to see. It's certainly one of the 47 Motorsports Normans.
And I believe it is the 47. That's Kyle Kirkwood. And I walked through the paddock yesterday looking at the cars, and I'm like, all right, guys, I've got 3 carbon black cars with orange on the engine cowl and silver on the front of it as well. This isn't helping anybody, you know. Matt Bell needs no help, though, as he leads the field up through turn 1, Jeremy. And for these guys, I think it's just about focus forward, put the laps in. Matt Bell experienced enough to know that it's really a lapping day for him for the next hour and 15 minutes. You don't put a wheel wrong. You don't gamble anything. Just go out there, put your good laps in, be solid, be attentive, and that championship could very well be yours without any unforeseen circumstances popping up. The 54 was just on pit road.
Yeah, so indeed, number 54 car and a number 40 as well has also made a pit stop, as has another lap back, the number 3 car, which was running in the 10th position. That's the Palmer father and son. Dakota Dickerson putting his 2 wheels off the road there at turn 7. That's going to cost him some ground.
Was the 33, which has a very similar paint scheme. One of them, and a problem there for the 40. Big spin for David Grant.
He's out lap. He's just made a pit stop, that car.
And it's chilly still here today, and even though there's good track temperatures, it's one of those deals where, as cold as the tires are, you get into turn 5, gets a little wiggle, and then gets up on the paint. The car comes around and just loses it. So you got to find not only the temperature in those Michelin tires, but you have to find also the pressures, because the pressures are a little bit lower, and you get the sidewall becomes a little bit more flexible. You don't quite have the compound up to temperature yet. You don't have that grip, and that looks like that's what happened to David Grant.
Yeah, and the 2 cars together there, it was Grant and right behind him was Dakota Dickerson who was able to go through there. Those 2 had just both come out of the pits, and it was Grant that spun and going to lose quite a bit of ground there, but he's going to be able to continue.
And just 64 degrees outside right now, so as we were saying, just still a bit cool. Now Grant in, I wonder if he's got a problem, or did he flat spot tires to the point that he needs to put new ones on? But anyway, you look at it, the season is shown so well for Keith and David Grant as far as their speed goes. They haven't had the finishes that they would like. There have been some mistakes from the cockpit along the way. I think either one of the brothers would tell you that. And we saw the problem there for David in turn 5. And so the crew going to work now on the left rear. I don't know if they're going to change it or if they're looking for a problem. Piece of body work there. I don't know if that was hanging out. So they'll remove, once again, what we call the cheese wedge. That helps direct airflow out, creates a low pressure area, and helps pull air out of the back of the car, but that's now been removed. David back on track.
Yeah, so that's another pit stop then for that car, which is going to drop it further back. So we've now got Matt Bell, who's, by the way, the last 2 laps, Matt Bell, our race leader in car number 64 for K2R Motorsports. He has reset his personal best laps in this race, 1:17.075 on his latest lap 74. Dakota Dickerson moves way past there on the David Grant, who's going to be a little bit more circumspect. They go through turn 5 after this most recent pit stop. Now there's only 2 cars, 1 lap down to the race leader, Thomas Merrill, who is the teammate for K2R Motorsports. He's taken over that number 11 car from Stephen Thomas, running in the 2nd position. And he's about 10 seconds ahead of Tristan Vidas in the Volvo Racing Ligier car number 60 in 3rd place. And then Scott Andrews now up to 4th in car number 9 for 2 laps behind the race leader.
No problems at all for Matt Bell and Naveen Rao, though. Thomas Merrill having a good run, putting in good lap time, 17.49 last time by, just 0.4 of a second slower than Matt Bell. And I think you talked about it earlier, Jeremy. Thomas Merrill didn't have a lap in the car, I don't think, before the race started, maybe just a few laps the other day, as the bodywork continuing to be a problem for Vidas in the number 60 after that spin by the 86 in contact in turn 1 just a few laps ago.
Yeah, so he's kind of hanging on the best he can here. He will hand over that car to Tony Kazimierz for the final stint of the race, but still with 70 minutes remaining, he's going to have to stay out probably another 15 minutes with this car in this damaged state before he will be able to reach the end of the race without needing another splash and go for fuel in the late stages. But that loose bodywork on the back, that's going to be costing him a lot of straight line speed. It's like a big parachute out the back of that car, and it's going to be handling very, very strangely through the corners as well. So a real handful now for the young Estonian here, 24 years of age, from Tallinn in Estonia, and Tristan Vidas here. This is going to be a battle for him to maintain that 3rd position.
Well, you wonder too,
surprisingly.
Yeah, well, you wonder too what the officials are looking at. You know, they're going, okay, looks like it's attached pretty well right now, but you don't want another full course caution because that piece of bodywork breaks off. You said 24 years old. He doesn't care what the car's handling like. He's just out there pushing right now. I can remember watching Claude Bourbonnais, the Quebecois driver years ago, many years ago, I won't say how many years ago, in an Atlantic race at Road America that I happened to be in, and Claude was behind me in the rear wing. He had contact with somebody in the rear wing, was falling off, and I kept looking in the mirror, and he kept getting closer and closer and closer, and I was on the radio saying they really need to black flag him. I think that's unsafe. Claude didn't care, but made him go faster down the straightaway. He was catching me, so I was complaining that perhaps they needed to bring him in. I don't think anybody else is close enough right now to Vidas to complain about that bodywork, but you certainly don't want it out in the middle of the racetrack. If it were to come off, it looks like it's pretty solidly attached. It's just kind of lifting up in the airstream. Now the 64, the leader's in.
Yeah, and it's 68 minutes to go in this race. So this is certainly too early, unless something very strange happens, in order to be able to get to the end of the race from here. We talked about that during that previous caution period. Yeah, there wasn't a lot of point perhaps in coming in then, although perhaps there was, because only 6 laps after the restart he's going to come in now. He's because of this 105 second minimum pit stop time, he's going to lose the lap advantage that he had over the rest of the field. So I think the number 64 car might have been better positioned to make that stop during the caution period, but still they're way out in front and will remain so, I believe, even after this pit stop is being completed, I think, over the number 11 of Stephen Thomas, who's now 13 seconds ahead of Tristan Vidas. So Vidas is losing maybe a second or a little bit over a second a lap in that 3rd position car to the car number 11 that is currently running in 2nd position. But even when Merrill comes past the line this time with number 64 car still stationary on the pit lane, this is only now, here comes the number 11 car, Thomas Merrill, across the line. So he's now on the same lap as the car that is still on pit lane stationary right there at pit exit.
So this will be interesting. This was right on cue, Jeremy. 39 laps on the first run for Naveen Rao, and you add the lap that we're on right now, you add 39 laps to that, you get 78, and basically that's pretty much what Matt Bell had completed. So it's one of those deals where you look at it and go, okay, that was right on cue. The yellows may not have worked out the way that they wanted him to. He's going to have to make another stop later, and it's going to be that same 105 seconds that you were talking about, because they're going to have to put a fuel probe in. And as soon as that probe goes in, you've committed yourself to that minimum time pit stop. But, you know, the yellows either work for you or against you. And I don't know that they've been really beneficial to anybody today. What you really need, if you're in second or third or fourth, is you need some help from the yellows now to try to get back on the lead lap and try to play your pit stop strategy to get you back there. The problem is, I think for everybody, they only have one more stop to go, so I don't know how you could ever think that that's going to work for you. Merrill now is being shown in the lead as he comes across the line, but it's one of those deals where it's just 57 seconds over Matt Bell, and you know that Merrill's going to need to make another stop too. And once again, when the fuel probe goes in, you're committed to that minimum time stop.
Yeah, and Tristan Vidas, I think, in the third position. He is also going to be on the lead lap as well, as well, he was until now, making that pit stop now with 65 minutes remaining for Volvo Racing in that Ligier. He will hand over the car to his countryman, Tony Kazimierz.
So reason this with me, Jeremy. You got the 11 car in front. They need one more stop. Matt Bell needs one more stop. They're both committed to that minimum time pit stop when the fuel probe goes in. Right now, I'm looking at it, and for the 11, I would expect to see that car around lap 96 or so. So in about 18 laps, that car should be in. A little over an hour to go. That car can make it, can run to the end, and one more pit stop. He's got a 25-second lead right now. If they both stopped right now and both did their one more pit stop, the 11, in theory, should be in front. The question is, can Matt Bell close down on Tom Merrill? I know who's had the faster lap times so far today.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that the number 64 car kind of missed a trick there by not making a pit stop under yellow. I think he would have been able to do that and still be a whole lap ahead of everybody else. We talked about a little while ago, they elected not to do so. And, you know, I think you're right. I think this is going to make a race of it, particularly with the two K2R Motorsports teammates. And we'll see where the number 60 car comes into the mix as well, having made its not final stop, but it too will require one more pit stop at the end to get to the end from here.
The other one that seems a little far outside, though, would be the 9, who once again made the last stop on 53, add 38 laps or so to that, and what you've got is lap 91. So he's got another few minutes, several more laps, and then he should be into the window where that last stop could be made. And even though he's being shown in third right now, he's about 50 seconds behind Matt Bell. If he were to make his stop first, I don't know. And remember, the 9 has played fuel. They've played the fuel game very, very close all season long. So it's one of those things that they took the victory at Road America with that. They played the fuel game at VIR as well and kind of lost out a little bit in the 86 now with a problem. Romer again, is that coming out of 7, I believe, where he has had the issue. Just over an hour to go from Road Atlanta. We know that our championship leader has another stop to make. So do several other teams. That could factor into the win here. And that looked like it just snapped at the exit when got a chance to look at that. The 86 almost out to the track out curbing, and then the car just kind of a really quick, violent snap.
Yeah, that didn't look like a whole heck of a lot of fun there for Chip Romer. He's used to that was big spin there, and he hasn't been able to get there going again. Meanwhile, by the way, Carl Kirkwood is looking to maintain his record. He might not win the race. He's 3 laps behind. He kind of 47 now, but he's just set a new lap record, 116.564 for Carl Kirkwood in kind of 47, and he kind of needs a full course caution. He's not going to make 3 laps back, but he's certainly charging as hard as he could, trying to maintain his record of 100% record of fastest laps in each of these races that he has completed.
And it's interesting, if you're not an open wheel fan, it's easy to look past a Kyle Kirkwood or a Dakota Dickerson or one of these young guys who really kind of plied their trade in the ladder systems of the open wheel series, and then they come here and you kind of scratch your head and you go, I wonder who that is. And we had a call the other day for the Imsa WeatherTech broadcast, and Kyle Kirkwood's name was mentioned with the Ambassador Sullivan group driving the Lexus this weekend, and someone made the comment, I didn't know much about him, and it was like, well, you're about to learn about him, because I guarantee you, whatever car he gets in, he's going to be pretty spectacular. And we were talking about personalities and everything, and they said, someone else had said, yeah, I met him, and he is a very, very serious young man, and he is. I mean, he's one of these guys that it's all about racing. That's all he focuses on. It's all he thinks about. Pretty stoic, I mean, you can get him to smile from time to time, but very, very, very serious young man. And I'll go along with very, very, very quick too. I see, I got my 3 varies from you there, Jeremy.
Yeah, no, he really is a extraordinary talent. Yeah, he and his close buddy, both from Jupiter, Florida, Oliver Askew, 2 tremendous talents. They both had a lot of success in the junior open wheel ranks, and Oliver Askew, he's actually here this weekend, looking around, meeting some people in the sports car ranks. He's lost his ride with the Arrow SP IndyCar team for next year, but I think everybody knows how talented Oliver Askew is, and he's talking to various people about opportunities both in IndyCar and in sports cars for next season. But Kyle Kirkwood is very much of the same ilk. He's just a couple of years behind Oliver Askew in age. He's a year or 2 behind him on the racing ladder as well, but no doubt about it, Kyle Kirkwood has a big future ahead of him.
1 hour to go in the 2020 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship Series. And the championship still open when we came into Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta. Still open now as we close in on less than an hour to go, but Matt Bell, Naveen Rao really in the driver's seat, pardon the pun. They've been so strong all weekend long. Naveen Rao doing exactly what he needed to do, qualifying on the pole at every lap of his stint, and now has handed it over to his teammate Matt Bell, putting in some pretty spectacular laps. And we were just talking about the young talent in this series, in Prototype Challenge, in the Imsa WeatherTech sports car paddock, and it's great to see those guys here. Kyle Kirkwood in the seat of one of the LMP3 cars, the number 47 from 47 Motorsports with Joel Janko and Jonathan George. Good to see him here. Dakota Dickerson, that kind of driver, and it's one of those deals that to see other drivers like Oliver Askew in the WeatherTech paddock, you know what? We'll take him over here any day, guys, because the talent is incredibly deep there. So it's really what sports car racing is about, and I think this series in particular offers some of these young drivers that are just coming out of the ladder systems in open wheel racing the opportunity to show their wares, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Is Kyle Kirkwood now impressive lap times behind the wheel of the 47. Out in front, it's the 11, Thomas Merrill, leading. And I think the format of this, Jeremy, you and I have talked about this a lot. The format of the bronze driver and the silver drivers is so interesting. It breeds such good racing. Even though Merrill listed as a bronze driver, I would probably put him there on the silver category, but his teammate Stephen Thomas as a bronze has been spectacular throughout the season. We've watched his progression, and that's really what 2020 has been about for these teams and drivers. They've overcome a lot of adversity, both on the racetrack and certainly with the pandemic that we've had to deal with all season long, and it's led to great racing and great racing happening again on the racetrack as Steven Simpson trying to stay in front of Rasmus Lind.
Yeah, this is a super battle, isn't it, between these two, and number 74 car's not far behind either. That's Wyatt Schwab, who's taken over from the most experienced driver in this race. That's John Brownson in car number 74. John Brownson, this is the 134th start in this championship. That includes the old IMSA Prototype lights that the LMP3 series has kind of morphed from. Yeah, he's a great character as John Brownson, and and he's handed over to another youngster here, just 19 years of age, is Wyatt Schwab from Millersville, Pennsylvania, in number 75 car, who's chasing after this Performance Tech pair of Stephen Simpson and Rasmus Lind.
And for Andrews in the 9, wondering about the pit stops for him, I would think about lap 91, so 5 or 6 laps to go, and we should be seeing that last stop for Andrews in the 9, and Merrill's going to need to stop too. A few laps after that, another 4, 5, 6 laps after that, I would think. That should move Bell back up to the point. But he too is going to need a splash, but there is no such thing as a splash in this series.
That's right. That's right. There is no such thing as a splash. You know, if you're in the pit stop and taking on through, if you're just in the pits to change drivers, change a wheel, whatever it might be, then there's no minimum pit stop time. As soon as you put a drop of fuel into the car, that's when that 105-second minimum comes into play. And you're absolutely right, Brian. You know, both of these cars are going to have to make one more pit stop. And even though the number 64 car is going to need a fair bit less fuel, a lot less fuel than number 11 car, you're still going to serve that minimum time. And the advantage, therefore, is still in the favour of number 11 car. Having said that, Matt Bell, in the second place car, number 64, he's consistently 6 or 7 tenths of a second quicker than Thomas Merrill. Thomas Merrill's last lap was a 1:17.8, which is about 3 tenths away from his fastest time. Matt Bell has just gone across the line now to complete lap 86. His lap time of 1:17.3, so another half a second closer for Matt Bell. This is going to be an intriguing battle with still 55 minutes remaining in this race, and pretty much any time after now, I think another lap or 2, I think anybody can make what will be their final pit stop of the day to be able to get to the finish line.
You have to think, Jeremy, with the faster driver in the car, they're going to burn more fuel. And what I was told was if you run flat out and the best laps that you can turn, you can run about 49.5 minutes, 50 minutes at the most. So you're right, here in another 3 laps, we should be inside that 50-minute mark, and you should be good to go to make your stop. So it's one of those deals that, unlike WeatherTech, unlike Michelin Pilot, with this time stop, it really kind of changes the complexion, because there's no real advantage of coming in with more fuel in the car and a shorter pit stop as far as taking fuel goes, because, as you said, that minimum pit stop time really negates any of that strategic advantage.
Fascinating, isn't it? The last lap, Thomas Merrill's just completed his 87th lap, 1:17.562 for Thomas Merrill. That's within a tenth of a second of his fastest lap of the race. Matt Bell was still waiting for, he's just crossed the line too. He's 22 seconds then, 22.1 seconds between first and second, the two team K2 R Motorsports teammates. And then we're watching on the screen the battle for 4th, 5th and 6th. Number 9 car is in 3rd position. He's about 15 seconds ahead of this battle. That is, as it comes in number 75, number 6 and the number 74. 3-car battle for 4th position. It's a late lunge to the inside there by car number 6, Rasmus Lind, not quite close enough. He had to jam on the brakes there to make sure he didn't hit the number 75. A good form to take out his teammate. Did that cost the position to Wyatt Schwab? I think it did, didn't it? So Rasmus Lind there now back into 6th position. He thought about making a move under braking at turn 10. Wasn't quite close enough, had to lock up the brakes, ran wide, and now Wyatt Schwab is up into 5th position in number 75 ahead. 74, excuse me, ahead of the number 6. So this battle is the one to watch right ahead of them on the racetrack. It's car number 54 now. That's Dakota Dickerson. He's way down in 7th position, another lap behind this trio of cars behind him. There's a good move by Rasmus Lind at turn 7 to get back past Wyatt Schwab. That's number 6 car ahead again. Here's a pit stop for a third place car, 52 minutes remaining. No doubt about it, Scott Andrews can get to the end from here. This is a super battle now. It will be for third position once they come across the line. It's the 3 car of Lance Wilsey, who's back behind the wheel of that number, short motorsport entry. 5 or 6 laps down now. Bud Gross back into the middle stint. Lance Wilsey is back at the wheel now, and he's wisely given way. It's back. Sticking back, Rasmus Lind and Schwab.
So Tom Merrill still out in front, Matt Bell, Steven Simpson, and we know that we're expecting pit stops by all of the top 5 cars. And Jeremy, you and I were talking about this a little bit earlier. When you look to LMP3 running in WeatherTech next year, that's going to be exciting. They're going to have their own championship. The 9 car does their stop. Andrews will be back out. He's good to go to the end. And I would expect to see the other dominoes begin to fall.
Yeah, agreed. I think we'll see a rash of pit stops very shortly now. It's, you know, for the leaders, however, you're probably better off staying out as long as you can, because if there is a full course caution, they can make their stop under yellow. That would be a big strategic advantage for anybody.
So Lind trying to hold off the 74. Wyatt Schwab really putting the pressure on, and that's we've seen Wyatt, and a wiggle there up the hill into turn 1.
Yeah, these two are on the limit, aren't they? They really are. This is a super battle that's going on, and Steven Simpson, because of this battle, has managed to pull a couple of seconds between himself. He's Steven Simpson in the blue and yellow car, with the blue and red car, the Motel 6 entry of Rasmus Lind, desperately trying to hold off that Norma chassis of Wyatt Schwab, 47 Motorsports in car number 74.
Yeah, Schwab really putting the pressure on. So you got 2 young guns there doing battle as we close in on the 2020 championship. Now inside 50 minutes to go.
Oops. There's Lance Wilsey backwards again.
And every time somebody loops it there, and it's hard to describe if you've not been on the racetrack, as the 11, Tom Merrill, your leader, comes to pit road. It's hard to describe how difficult it is to see around turn 7, the exit of that corner. And when you're sitting there backwards, it is not where you want to be by any stretch of the imagination. Wilsey gets the car to the inside, and he'll get it back underway. But every time someone goes around backwards there, we saw Joel Janko off there a little bit earlier. We saw the 86 off as well. It's just a precarious place to be. And now the final pit stop of 2020 for the 1174 in as well. And the 77th lap was the last time that we saw Matt Bell in the 64, the championship leader. So you do the math there and you come up with what, lap 115 before we would expect to see him. So another 15, 16 laps at least before I expect to see him. And there's that near miss. You can't, that was like a piece of paper between those cars coming around the corner and Lance Wilsey. How do you think that looked from Lance Wilsey's seat?
Yeah, not terribly good. I don't think he'll be happy to get that car out of the way. It looks like he's going to have to do a 3-point turn to get back facing the right direction again, but he'll be happy not to be in the firing line at the exit of turn 7. We've already seen several really close calls at that corner earlier in this 3-hour race, and that was really tight. But no harm, no foul. He's got away with it. Number 64 car continues out in front, and the number 11 car is going to rejoin after his pit stop.
Okay, so that's key. So the 64 just came by as the leader, and Merrill out of the pits right behind him. So we know that it's going to have to be that minimum or that timed pit stop for the 64 when they pit. So you would think that they might leave Bell out for the entire fuel load. He's running good laps. Let him put in faster and faster laps, build that gap between he and Merrill as much as they possibly can before they make that stop at the end.
Yeah, I think right now there's another spin for number 86 car as well. That's Chip Romer. He's having an interesting time out there, isn't he? Number 64, and I've lost count of number of spins between numbers 86, excuse me, not 64, 86 and 33. But it's going to be getting up to a double figures, I think, between the pair of them. But there doesn't seem to be any damage on either car. They're able to carry on and continue to have some fun. Or there may be something just trailing a little bit off the back end. I think Cheese Wedge, maybe that. Left rear bodywork on number 86 car might be a little bit deranged finally for him as Matt Bell continues to run very quick laps out in front. His last lap, this lap was a 1:17.0. His previous lap was a 1:16.9. That's within a tenth of a second of his fastest lap of the race. So Matt Bell pushing hard in that car number 64. Number 11 car rejoins behind him down to the number 64 car, but one lap down, that's no problem, because when 64 car makes his own pit stop, he's going to lose more than that lap.
Yeah, absolutely. And so that's where Tom Merrill needs to really be digging. But for Matt Bell, he needs to think about this. Okay, Dakota Dickerson is being shown there in fifth for the 54 to win this championship. They need to win, and Matt Bell, Naveen Rao need to finish fourth or worse. So even if Dakota Dickerson finishes second, I believe it's one of those things where Naveen Rao and Matt Bell must finish sixth or worse. So right now they're in the catbird seat, and while you would love to put a period on your championship by winning the final race of the season, I think it's one of those things that really the championship is more important than this race win right now. So yeah, for Matt Bell, go put the laps in, and he's right down in the low 17s as he heads back out as he's out on the racetrack, I should say, and Tom Merrill's out there. But that's the key. He's turning in good lap times, solid lap times, and you're just going to have to see where the cards fall when Merrill gets back up to speed. But Merrill now on pit road again, I believe.
Yeah.
Is that a penalty?
Pit speed violation. Is it miles or kilometers? I can't remember. What's the pit lane speed? It's miles, isn't it? Miles an hour. +8. So drive-through penalty for car number 11. That is, well, I think definitely going to cost them the potential win here. That is a really surprising error for car number 11. If it was just 1 or 2 miles an hour, then maybe it'd be unfortunate, but 8 miles an hour, no, clearly he forgot to use there, I think, the pit lane speed limiter, and that is going to be a very, very costly error for car number 11.
Yeah, that's just, you can't make those mistakes, and I don't know where it was. I don't know if it was in or out. In, I think for these guys, they can carry speed all the way down the hill from up at the bridge because they're using the pit lane on the outside of the front straightaway. So you can come out from underneath the bridge and carry big speed all the way down the hill, get into the brakes really hard, and then into the pit lane speed limiter. So I don't know if he made the error on the way in or on the way out. It doesn't matter because the penalty is the same. And that is one of those things that you can't make those mental errors. I know that they were thinking that they might have this race won and they wanted to be in and out as quickly as they could, but you just can't make mistakes like that. No mistakes made today at all for the 64 though. Matt Bell now behind the wheel, closing in on the number 6 just in front. That's Rasmus Lind in the number 6 Performance Tech entry, and Lind has had a great run, but not nearly as good as Bell and Rao, and Matt Bell looking to put the 3rd place runner a lap down. It's just how dominant they've been all weekend long, Jeremy.
Yeah, they have. They put the car on pole position. Did Naveen Rao, really good effort. I mean, it's been a fabulous weekend for that whole K2R Motorsports team. Bobby Golozinski, who's a former crew chief in the IndyCar paddock, been around the sport a long, long time, and he's put together 2 really, really good cars. They qualified are on the front row of the grid within a tenth of a second of each other, and they have thoroughly dominated this 3-hour race. They're at the moment running in the first and fourth positions, but number 11 car, at least it hopes, has now made its final pit stop of the day, whereas the two cars ahead of him, the number 75 and number 6, still owe us, I believe, one more pit stop before the conclusion.
Yeah, they're definitely going to owe us one more pit stop. The 75, Steven Simpson, 62, I'd expect to see him right around lap 100. So maybe 3 or 4 more laps for the 75. Rasmus Lind in the 6, he can stay out a little bit longer than that. Merrill should be good to go to the end. And Matt Bell should be into pit lane one more time.
This is a battle on track here between. This is a battle for position with Thomas. Excuse me, with Dakota Dickerson and Tony Kazmit just trying to make the pass. It's Dakota Dickerson still holds on to the 5th position ahead of number 60, Tony Kazmit. And look at the colour scheme on that number 54 car, Dakota Dickerson. There's some sort of marks all over it. In fact, they're paw prints, as in dog paw prints, because Dakota is an ambassador for the Nowzad charity, which is a charity that reunites servicemen and women with the animals that befriended them, and created incredibly close bonds while on deployment in Afghanistan. It's a great charity. Nowzad.com to donate to that charity. That is the paw prints on the number 50.
And certainly a good cause there as Dickerson holding off Kazmit's. And Tony Kazmit's one of the hardest chargers in the field, and even with the damage that's on that 60, it looks like they were able to get it somewhat sorted out, at least a little bit, after Tristan Vitas had his near miss with the 86 that had spun in turn 1 a little bit earlier. Obviously, Kazmits has a pretty good car underneath him because he's able to put that pressure on Dakota Dickerson as Steven Simpson heads to pit road. Lap 98, pretty much what we thought. Right around that 98, 99, 100 lap, we expected to see him, and he is now in with just under 40 minutes to go. And with under 40 minutes to go, Kazmit's not relenting at all to Dickerson.
He is not, is he? This is a super battle here between the youngster Dakota Dickerson, but I think Tony Kazmit's got the preferred line here. He's going to be the inside line when they get to the end of the straight here under braking for turn 10, and I think that pass has now been made by Tony Kazmit. Indeed it has. He turns into the corner with the there's no way that Dakota Dickerson could turn in because Kazmit's car is already there. So perfect textbook pass by Tony Kazmit, car number 60 for Volvo Racing. Move that car up now into the 5th position. And it will be, I think, 4th next time around with number 6 car still on pit lane for its final stop of the day.
So the pit stops taking place now, those final ones of the 2020 season. This is it. This is the last stop for these crews and these drivers. Junior 3 crew going to work there, as I believe the driver change was also happening. So they're going to make that driver change, and I think if you're Eric Palmer, you're thinking, yeah, I'll let my sponsor, i.e. my dad, back in the car to see the checker flag on the championship season if we want to do this again next year. They're waiting for the checker flag is Matt Bell. Naveen Rao, I'm sure, is nervous sitting on the pit box with inside 38 minutes to go from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta in the IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. Out in front, Bell has put on just a clinic. He's been measured. He's been fast when he needed to be. He's been measured when he needed to be. He's been careful, but he's been forceful at other times. And that's what championships are made of. You've got to find that right mix of drivers sharing a car together and that right mix of aggression and concentration and a little bit of patience at times, Jeremy, in order to get through these classes, especially with this 3-hour race when you've had bronze drivers out with silver drivers out with bronze drivers, and that mix has been precarious at times, but so far, so good.
Yeah, indeed. It's it's going to be a Norma almost certainly that wins this race, and probably a 1-2 finish as well. You look at their fastest laps of the race, it's all been Norma's. The fastest lap of the race, a new lap record was set by Carl Kirkwood in car number 47. He's in the 16s. The only guys in the 17s. Actually, the two of the Ligiers are in the 17s, but high 17s. 1:17.9 for both Tony Kasemets and Rasmus Lind, number 60 and 6 cars, respectively. Quicker than that, also in the 16s, was our race leader Matt Bell. He's done a 16.8 and 16.6 for Scott Andrews in car number 9, another of the Norma chassis. 100 laps completed then by Matt Bell with 36 minutes remaining.
And it's not time yet to start hearing all the noises in the car. That happens with like 2 laps to go, certainly after the white flag. And drivers always talk about that, but Matt Bell still has a long way to go. 36 minutes around Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta with another 14 cars circulating out there, another 13 cars circulating out there. Brings challenges every single time. We know that as you approach other cars, and you know that cars like the 86 have had challenges throughout the day, and great move there by Paul LaHaye, who has many miles under his belt. Rasmus Lind now comes to pit road for his final stop. You know, for Matt Bell, this is where that patience come in. We said, you know, aggressive at times when you need to be patient at other times, and this is where you need to be patient. You've got that 1 lap lead because of the problems that Merrill had with the speeding penalty on that last pit stop. So you're in the catbird seat. You can't lose concentration, but you can't throw it away either with a silly mistake.
Yeah, as we saw number 11 car do with the spin. There's a surprise this time. It's Paul LaHaye who's back at the wheel, number 86 car. So he and Chip Roma are kind of splitting the duties there, and I'd like to know how many spins each of them has at this stage. But of course, golly, that was awfully close. As he rejoins the racetrack, has to drive. You know, they don't have a great steering lock on these LMP3 cars, so it's not easy to turn these cars around. They're kind of like oil tankers out on the ocean. But that was a big spin for Paul LaHaye. He's running in the 12th position. So once again, though, no contact. Hats off to you, Paul.
Oh, but the near miss was, I don't know. I mean, we had a close one a few laps ago, but that one was insanely close. It took my breath away. The 54 now, and you can see the paw prints on the Ligier as Dakota Dickerson sits there, knowing it's his final pit stop of the season. Here it is. It's the 9 car. Oh. Good move by Andrews to miss the 86 as he's trying to get turned around, as you were just saying, Jeremy. And I'll give credit to Paul LaHaye. If you look up and see that car coming, you can't stop at that point in time, because that car is seeing you move, and he's made his decision based upon your movement. You need to keep the car going so you can get by. For Dakota Dickerson, what do you think's going through his mind right now, Jeremy? I mean, fought so hard in this championship. This whole ML team has all season long. They've used good strategy. They've used good speed. Dominic Cicero has certainly been a big part of this championship run. But you know, as you're sitting there, that it's slipping away.
It is, but you know you've done the best you can. I mean, over the last couple of years, the Ligier just hasn't been as quick as a Norma, bottom line. So if they can finish second in the championship and beat everybody else, including all the other Normas, that's a job well done on the season. There's again a good close look at those paw prints. And by the way, each of those paw prints has the name of a dog on them for people who have contributed to that charity. In fact, Riley's name is on there somewhere, which is kind of cool. But for Dakota Dickerson right now, he's just going to carry on doing the best he can. He knows there's a new Ligier chassis coming for next season. The MLT team will have that, and he will have a much sharper tool with which to challenge these leaders in the 21 season.
Well, selfishly, I'll say I hope that he's a part of it for sure. There is absolutely no shame in anything that this MLT team, Dakota Dickerson, Dominic Cicero have done all year long. They've done what they needed to do. Podium finishes, a race victory last time out at Mid-Ohio when they needed that victory to close down in the championship. They needed it. They got it. But like you said, that Ligier just seems to be a little bit on the back foot in this 2020 season. And so finishing second is nothing to be ashamed about by any stretch of the imagination if they can hold on and get that done at the end of this race. There is your championship leader and the overall leader of this race as Matt Bell heads through turns 3 and 4, down through the S's, and then into turn 5, the 33. Lance Wilsey just in front of him. And closing down on half an hour to go. You think about 9.5 months it's been since we did the race at the Roar, Jeremy. We stood there, a great race, a great call, and Daytona is always an awesome place to start the season. We never expected to see the season that we saw. We expected to see the racing that we've seen, but the challenge that have come with it as far as the pandemic and COVID-19 has gone, I think everybody within the IMSA organization to get the races literally back on track, all the teams, all the sponsors, all the drivers, everybody who complied with the strict rules that were in place. Without that adherence to the rules, we wouldn't be here right now. And so everybody in this paddock today is a reason why we're in this paddock today, because everybody followed the protocols, and it's why we're able to crown a champion at the end of today's race in just over 30 minutes.
Yeah, well said. I mean, yeah, with all the challenges, it certainly cost several entries, I think, no question about it. It cost several entries for the season-long championship, but it's still been a great season of racing. There's been some really good competition. There's been some great driving. We've got some really fast drivers in this championship, so yeah, I think it's opened some people's eyes, and I think the future for the series looks really strong. These cars are a hoot to drive. Everybody who drives them absolutely loves them. They're strong, they're fast, they have plenty of downforce, and they're a challenge to drive.
Well, and everybody says, you should drive one. I've had a couple of people say, if we're around, so on and so forth, come and drive one. Come do a few laps. Do half an hour or whatever. And I'm like, A, there's no way I would last half an hour, and B, the last thing I need to do is drive one of these cars because I would realize just how much fun they are, and that would make me want to do stupid things. So I'm going to make sure that I don't do that, but I enjoy doing what you and I are doing, and that's talking about the great racing that this series has provided us all throughout the season. Merrill now up to second place. His final stop is done, we know that. Bell, we're expecting we're going to have to see him before long, I believe, or has he made his, no, he's made his last stop.
The 64 car. No,
he needs one more.
He does need one more stop, absolutely. Yep. So the question is, how close can Thomas Merrill get to him? He's more than a lap down, and unfortunately, with the scoring system we have, it's difficult to say exactly how far down he is.
I was going to say, I know he's a lap down, but I didn't know how far. So let me ask you this. You're in charge of the final pit stop for the 64 car. Are you going to change tires?
Yes, if I have them, if I've got a fresh set of tires, absolutely. Yeah, it depends. I don't know how many sets of tires they've used during this weekend. They had an allocation of 5 sets they could use during the weekend. We talked earlier on, documented earlier on, how number 54 car saved a set of tires rather than using them in practice and or qualifying. Saved a set of tires for this final stint of the race. Unfortunately, with the other problems number 54 car has had with out on the racetrack, it's not put him into contention. But I honestly don't know with the number 64. But certainly what I do know is that Matt Bell continues to run really fast laps at the front of the field here. 1:17.3 last time around. The only guy that's close to that, actually a fraction quicker, was Scott Andrews, who's running in the 4th position, currently 2 laps behind Matt Bell in car number 9.
Less than 28 minutes to go in the 2020 championship season for IMSA Prototype Challenge. Jeremy Shaw, Brian Till with you. And I ask about, do you change tires on the final stop for the 64 car, Jeremy? Not because he needs the tires. There's not going to be a lot of time left in this race. Do you risk taking off 4 wheel nuts and putting 4 wheel nuts back on?
Yeah, well,
You know what I mean? Do you eliminate
I
every chance for an error?
yeah, and I think the teams have got enough confidence. Yeah, these are not teams over the wall guys that you know, do this for a living, as in some of the series. You know, there's
Right.
in
Right.
NASCAR the over the wall team is completely. They most of them don't even work on the race cars, which is certainly not what it used to be at this level of racing. You know, all the over the wall guys would have a very serious job on the look in terms of preparation of the car, the mechanics of the car. These days in NASCAR, they're just 100% focused on changing the wheels and tires and or putting in the fuel. That's not the case here in the IMSA Prototype Challenge Series, but most of the guys that are doing those jobs have been doing it for quite a long time, so they have plenty of experience and therefore confidence in themselves.
Well, Wyatt Schwab now gets past the 6, but I'm not even talking about the guys, Jeremy, actually doing the stop. Think back to the 10 cars, the problem that they had somehow, some way with the wheel nut on the right rear. They put it on. They put it on properly. They put it on with the pressure. They put it on with the same gun that they used on the left rear, but when they did it on the right rear, it didn't work for some reason. And I'm just sitting there going, do I want to change anything other than put fuel in the car and send it back out? Of course, the argument to that is you've got tires that have been on for a while. They could be worn. They could have picked up debris. Give you a fresh set to make sure you're good to the end and you don't have any problem with perhaps a tire that may have an issue. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure which one's right or which one's wrong.
Yeah, I'm not sure there is a right or wrong answer at this stage. It's just about how comfortable they feel and how. I mean, certainly this tyre's been working very, very well for Matt Bell. He's able to consistent lap times. He's last time around, he and his teammate Thomas Merrill turned almost identical lap times, 1 minute 17.7. So yeah, there's nothing to choose between these two teammates in terms of lap time.
Well, and you wonder too how much information gets shared between team cars. We certainly saw Steven Simpson and the number 6 of Rasmus Lind running almost identical lap times. Look at that down the hill. Lind thinks about looking to the inside of the 40, and I think he thinks better of it. But that's going to bring pressure from behind, and that is the 11. Thomas Merrill wants to get through this gaggle of cars, and it is close going up the hill. The 33 is slow to the outside. Wow. Another one of those take your breath away moments as they head up the hill. And for Merrill, he doesn't want to lose any time at all because he knows that Matt Bell has that one stop left to make, and this is their one shot.
That's right. Matt Bell just goes across the line now to complete lap 110. There's the number 11 car, so it's kind of a lap and a half back. I think that should be okay for Matt Bell to make that pit stop and come out still ahead of Thomas Merrill. But without the extra pit stop, the drive-through penalty for car number 11, I think that might have been a different story.
The woulda, shoulda, couldas of racing. And for Matt Bell, he knows he's got that one more stop. Merrill trying to make up for that sin on pit road, wherever it happened, in or out, we don't know. But traffic is not what he wants to see. That holds him up. And for Matt Bell, he's got clear sailing. So Merrill trying to work his way through and get some good, fast lap times in because he knows the 64 has to stop. And what I was saying, Jeremy, about Steven Simpson and Rasmus Lind on the same team, turning the same kind of lap times. And then we see the K2R Motorsports entries, the 64, the 11. You wonder how much chassis sharing or information sharing goes on back and forth and how similar the setups are on those two cars, because we're seeing great performances by both of them. And you talk about traffic, I just looked up at the timing screen, and Merrill had been down in the 17s. He's now at a 19.5 on that last lap where he had to deal with the traffic up through 1 and all the way down to 5.
Yeah, there's only 14 cars out on the racetrack, actually only 12 now, with the number 40 car has, I think, joined the number 10 on the retirement list. That's a shame we didn't see Parker Thompson, the young Canadian driver, have an opportunity to show his skills at the wheel of the number 40 car, sharing with the Grant brothers. But even though there's only 12 cars on this 2.5-mile racetrack, there's always, it seems, at least 2 cars running together. So it's certainly been an exciting race. And pit stop to come for the race leader, kind of.
Well, and I would think if you work off of that 38 lap number, which seems to be, give or take, kind of the number that we should see the 64 here in the next 3 or 4 laps to get that stop. That should take him just about to the end of a fuel stint, and then certainly get him to the checkered flag. But, you know, as we keep saying, it is a minimum pit stop time. Once that car comes to pit road and the fuel probe goes in, it's a commitment of 105 seconds on pit road, and there is the 64 with just over 21 minutes to go in the race and in the 2020 season.
That's right. So 112 laps for our race leader. As you were saying, Brian, his last pit stop was on lap 77. So 26:38 laps. And fuel going into that car. They are changing at least 2 tires on the right-hand side of the car. I would imagine they would probably, they're going to change all 4 on that K2R Motorsports team.
Yeah, it would have been
experience there. A lot of experience there on that team, and John Dick, who's been around the sport a long time, a very accomplished IndyCar engineer. He calls the shots there for this K2R team.
Well, I think it's interesting that you mentioned John, because that just shows, once again, we talked about the level of young drivers here and how good they are, but when you look behind the pit wall, you've talked about IndyCar mechanics and IndyCar crew chiefs and IndyCar engineers. That's the level of talent that exists behind the wall, and it just shows you how competitive not only this series is, but how competitive I expect it to be next year. And I think the thing that's going to be interesting with 2021 is, with brand new cars, there's not a Norma, it's a Duquesne next year is the name of it, but the Ligier, those cars are new. They've run them in Europe, so there is a book on them, but it's going to take everybody a while to get up to speed with them as the 64 heads off a pit lane to get back up to speed on the racetrack. We'll look for the 11 and see where it is. So we know Matt Bell's already on the racetrack. And looking back down the order to see where the 11 is, just now onto the front straightaway. So Bell will maintain that lead, but Merrill should now be on the same lap with him, I believe.
Correct.
But yeah, it's going to take a while for everybody to kind of get a handle on their respective chassis next year. So I think the year in general will be good, but the first half of the season, there's going to be a steep learning curve for these engineers and these crew chiefs and the drivers as well. And I think that just bodes for some really intense competition in 2021.
I 100% agree with you. And number 60 car also on the lead lap. Now, Tony's Chasm, it's been a really good run for that team. It was Bruce Hamilton who started off. He had a bit of a torrid start to the race. Tristan Vidas also has his trials and tribulations, being involved in an incident at turn 1. But Tony's Chasm, it's in that 3rd positioning, car number 60. It's been this team's best result of the year. They had a couple of podium finishes last year. This year, though, the best coming into here was a 7th place in the first round at Daytona. So it's been an excellent run for Volvo Racing and a perfect way to end off the season with a podium finish if they can maintain their position right now. And that would be the highest finishing Ligier in this race.
All right, so here's what we've got. Tom Merrill has 18 minutes and 10 seconds to close 15-second gap to Matt Bell. That's it. That if Merrill wants to win this race, that's what he has to do, and that is a tall order. Kazimitz on the lead lap, as you said, 39 seconds back. And so for Matt Bell, Naveen Rao, they've done everything that they need to do to win this championship. They just need to hold on for a little under 18 minutes, because really the closest competitor is the 54, and that's Dakota Dickerson and his MLT Motorsports Ligier, now being shown in 8th. They came in with a shot at the championship, 6 points out. And Jeremy, they did everything they needed to do. They gambled a little bit. They went with a low downforce setup, saying this is the only way that we can compete. We know that it's going to create some deficit for us in some areas of the racetrack, advantages in others. These are the cards we feel like we need to play to have a shot at this championship. And unfortunately for them, it has just not worked out the way that they thought it might.
No, it hasn't, but it certainly has been a valiant effort, and you know, a really good season for the MLT Motorsports team. You know, it's a locally based team here, so they came in here with high expectations. So to be finishing at the bottom end, toward the bottom end of the top 10, they're in 8th position at the moment, pretty much on a lap on their own. Actually, they're almost a lap behind Rasmus Lind in car number 6, and a similar margin, I think, ahead of Kyle Kirkwood in the car number 47. So it certainly isn't the end of the season they wanted, but they should still hold their heads up high. Whoops.
Ooh, that was a moment.
That's our
leader.
race leader, isn't it?
That's Matt Bell.
Yeah, it is. It's still, I mean, that'll be his first flying lap. So I think the tyre's not yet fully up to temperature, and that is potentially a very costly mistake for Matt Bell. I guess he's done one lap on this fresh set of tyres, which is a 1 minute 17.8, which is a pretty darn good lap. But that's going to cost him quite a bit of time.
Well, and you hope that's all it cost him. We talked about this earlier. Yeah. You cannot lose focus at all, and it seems that might be what happened, as that was the exit of 5. There was contact with the wall. I'm not sure how aggressive the contact was. It's pretty aggressive.
Yeah, it's pretty, isn't it? Yikes, yeah.
He's lost a bit of body work there in the grass, but the other thing is you have to wonder about the health of that car, and especially the right rear that made the contact with the wall. The car actually got up in the air. That's a wheel, that's a half shaft that gets pushed into the transmission. Those are CV joints. That's a Michelin tire that could be damaged. That was a substantial contact.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it cost him 5 seconds, so the gap now is around about 11 seconds from first to second. But we're going to see over the next few laps what sort of lap times he's concerned, is able to turn, and whether there is any damage that is going to be restricting his progress in the final 14 minutes of this race.
That is huge for Matt Bell and Naveen Rao. I'm looking at Dakota Dickerson back in 8th, and I can't even pretend to potentially do the math to say if the 47 had a mechanical right now, or the 64 had a mechanical and didn't finish, what would that do to the championship? But Jeremy, you can't make those kind of mistakes. You just can't, not with 18 minutes left to go in a season championship when you're leading.
No, you're absolutely right there. And if the car were to go out of the race now, 13 minutes remaining. Yeah, if he went out now, he'd finish in the 12th position, which would, I think then Dakota Dickerson would need to score 25 points, which is a 5th or possibly 6th position. And right now, Dakota is in 8th. He would move up 1 position if Matt Bell falls out, but it's still under control, well under control at the moment for car 64.
But like I said, you wonder about the health of the car, the 3 with a problem in turn 1, because any big load like that, like I said, that's every connecting bolt in the back that's holding the uprights to the A-arms. That's a half shaft, because it gets hit hard from the side and driven in. So that's just that's excitement that you don't need if you're down there on the pit box, that's for sure. And that was a near miss there.
It certainly was. The last time around, 1 minute 17.7 for Matt Bell. As we see, number 3 car, that's Greg Palmer, having a problem there up at turn 3 and 4.
Well,
as Dakota Dickinson tries to go in. Oh, yikes. And that's the race leader as well. Had to go
absolutely.
off
I was going to say.
Gracious.
He keeps getting shots thrown at him. This is not over with 12 minutes yet to go. I mean, you're seeing all kinds of twists and turns. The 60 in and the 3 stalled on the racetrack, and if he can't get that restarted, we're going to go full course. It's in a bad place. The car is in a bad place.
No, I mean, if the car is, if Greg Palmer is unable to get that car going again, it's certainly, you're going to have to bring out a full course caution.
You have to.
I think they're going to wait as long as they can. The race control will be on the radio with the team to say, to learn whether or not he's able to get that car refired again. And it's not. You'll full course yellow.
And there we go. See, you need to wait around because it all gets exciting in the end. Closing in on 11 minutes to go in the 2020 IMSA Prototype Challenge Championship. And the season's not over with yet. There's 11 and a half minutes to go. And I would say the championship has not been decided. Certainly the race winner has not been decided, because this is going to put Thomas Merrill right on the gearbox of the 64. Andrews will be there as well. Kazimitz, I don't know what kind of lap traffic might be between them, but they will make quick work of trying to remove the stranded number 3 of Greg Palmer. And it's going to be a short shootout to the finish.
Yes, it is. I mean, there's 2 teammates now running first and second, Matt Bell and Thomas Merrill. I'm not sure whether there's going to be any lapped cars in between them when we get to the restart. I don't think they'll clear those out. There's a quick pit stop for number 60 car. They might have been running a little bit low on fuel. They made their final stop with 68 minutes to go. So this caution is certainly, I think, useful for the number 60 car, but it will fall off, I believe, the lead lap.
Yeah, I would think so, as one more time the 64 comes past the line to be picked up by the safety car. And we'll have to see what traffic looks like behind. It's the 74 of Wyatt Schwab, who's 1 lap down, the first car behind the 64. And Wyatt has been very quick behind the wheel of the 74 today. So we'll have to see where Merrill and Andrews are in the order as they line up here.
Yeah. In fact, on that last lap, or maybe 2 laps ago, Wyatt Schwab was able to get past, I think it was on this lap actually, maybe the last lap, number 74 car was able to get past the number 75. So both of the Performance Tech cars really been struggling in this final stint of the race. Number 6 car fell behind Wyatt Schwab several laps ago and dropped a long way behind him. Rasmus Lind was unable to keep pace even close. He's losing a lot of ground per lap. And now the 74 car, it had whittled down a deficit to the number 75 car of 9 seconds on lap 107, and on lap 116, the 74 car moves ahead of number 75. So Wyatt Schwab has been really running well, and now up into 4th position in car number 74.
9 minutes to go from Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, the final race of 2020 for the IMSA Prototype Challenge Series. Full course caution. It's going to be a shootout to the end. Matt Bell in the 64 leads. They qualified on pole at the hands of Naveen Rao. He led every lap in his stint, handed over to Matt Bell, and they have been up front. This bodes well for their championship. But what about the race win? Thomas Merrill has been exceedingly quick in the 11. The problem is he is 5th in the order, so he's got 3 lapped cars between himself and leader Matt Bell. So when we go back to green, he's going to have to make short work of those 3 cars if he wants to put any pressure on Bell. But we saw Matt Bell just a few laps ago, a very uncharacteristic mistake off at the exit of turn 5, made contact with the wall. And I can't help but wonder about the health of that number 64. Is a pretty good hit on the right rear with the concrete wall there after the exit of turn 5.
Yeah, I mean, he has been turning good lap times, so the car seems to be in pretty good health. But I'm sure for Bobby Golozinski and the team principal there at K2R Motorsports, he'll be glad of the fact that there are a few cars in between his two cars at the front of the field, because he won't want to see them dicing together. Nor, of course, will Naveen Rao, the co-driver of Matt Bell. He just wants Matt to bring his car home to the finish line with their second win of the season and the championship. So he doesn't want any excitement from behind at this stage.
Yeah, I would say not. I'm sure the radios have lit up with both Matt and Tom Merrill in the 11 explaining the championship situation and so on and so forth. But, you know, for Tom Merrill, maybe he unplugged his radio. Maybe he didn't want to hear those messages. He wants to win the race, right, Jeremy? He's like, yeah, whatever. Okay, I won't take him out, but I'm going to the front. So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be a short one because we're inside 7 minutes to go. Safety truck at the exit of turn 5 picking up one of the aerodynamic bits off the back end of the 64 after Bell made that contact with the wall. I mean, as I said, Jeremy, he hit it hard. That car was up in the air. The rear of the car was off the ground after contact with the wall. That tells me the tire kind of ran up the concrete wall after making contact with it. So it was a pretty substantial hit.
It really was, and yeah, no question it's a concern, if not to Matt Bell, certainly to the team. You know, all the cars now weaving around trying to maintain some temperature in those tyres, and of course the brakes, which is just as important, in fact more so, probably at this stage in the race. Looks like we're going to go back to green this time around. We're just going to have a little bit over 5 minutes remaining in this race. We've got 3 cars on the lead lap then, 64, 11 and 9, still back into contention now. And then we've got another 5 cars, 1 lap down, 74, 75, 6, 60 and 54.
Green flies one more time at Michelin Raceway Road, Atlanta. 5.5 minutes to go in the 2020 season for IMSA Prototype Challenge, and Matt Bell leads the field up the hill. What can Tom Merrill do? He was 5th in the order at the start, but 2nd in the running order. He's got 3 lap cars in front of him that he needs to work by if he wants to take the fight to his teammate Matt Bell and try to come home with the victory. And so far, he has not been able to make ground at all on the 3 cars in front of him. Just in front is the 75 of Steven Simpson. That won't be an easy pass to make.
It won't, no. Steven Simpson running in the 5th position behind Wyatt Schwab, ahead of his own teammate number 6, who's right there in that train of cars. It's 75-11, which is on the lead lap, 6, which isn't. Between the 75 and the 6, we've seen them battling pretty much all the way through this race, haven't we? And you know, they're still squabbling over what will effectively be 5th position as Merrill makes that pass on the number 75 car. So that's 1 car picked off for the number 11, but still a fair deficit to catch up with number 64.
Kind of gives you an idea when you use the word deficit of the straight line speed deficit with the Ligier chassis compared to that of the Norma. The Norma very fast in a straight line. Merrill made quick work of it, and now he's got his sights set ahead. Still 2 cars to go before he can get to the rear wing of the 64. What does Matt Bell have underneath him? What's the wheel feel like? Is it straight anymore after that contact? Is there a vibration? It's not just the race win that's on the line. Potentially it is the championship. It's all come down to this with less than 4 minutes to go in the season. It all started 9.5 months ago at Daytona. It's come down to this, Jeremy.
Yeah, it's been a tremendous season. We've still got all sorts of battles out on the racetrack, by the way. Number 54 car, Dakota Dickerson, he's just managed to sneak past Tony Kazmets on this last lap, so up into 7th position. That battle continues there. We've got those 5 cars, just 1 lap down to our overall race leader. And we're going to have to keep an eye also on Scott Andrews. Can he catch Thomas Merrill? He, I think, is mired in traffic on his own in that car number 9 in 3rd position. He's got some cars in between himself and Thomas Merrill in 2nd place.
Well, and now Andrews has to deal with Rasmus Lind and Steven Simpson in front of him. And once again, we've seen how competitive Rasmus Lind is, Steven Simpson as well. The only thing Andrews really has going for him right now is that Norma chassis. When he gets to the back straightaway, you think he'll have a straight line speed advantage, but the back straightaway is a long way away. They've got to go all the way through the diving S's, 5, 6, 7. Then he can take advantage of the straight line that the Norma seems to have. Matt Bell still out in front, and the 4th car in line is the 11 of Tom Merrill. That is the 2nd place car in the order, but I don't think he has been able to make any ground on the 2 cars in front of him.
He hasn't, you're right. In fact, the last couple of laps, Merrill has actually been able to stretch that lead over the number 9 car. So the gap between first and second, 2.7 seconds last lap. Between second and third, 3.8 seconds. And with only a couple of minutes remaining in this race, I don't think we're going to see the white flag this time by. It'll be 2 more laps in this race.
I think you're right, Jeremy. Inside 2 minutes, but with 1 minute and 18-second lap times. I believe Matt Bell will need another 5 miles once he crosses the line. Bell through the apex of turn 12. Indeed, 2 more laps for the race win, 2 more laps for the championship for he and Naveen Rao and this entire K2R Motorsports team. Dakota Dickerson looking a little racy there with Rasmus Lind.
Yeah, he's certainly got the pace. He's gone past him. Yep. So there's another position gain for Dakota Dickerson. He's certainly not giving up yet, is he? He's got past his fellow youngster there, Rasmus Lind, who's struggling in this late stint. And now, number 54 goes going to try and set his sights on number 75. But I don't think he's going to have quite enough time to catch him.
Well, it's one of those things that you talked about it and wishing no ill will to anybody as we're inside 1 minute to go, and it'll be the white flag this time by for Matt Bell. But if he should have a problem, if that collision, that contact should indeed create some kind of a problem and he's unable to finish, Dickerson is doing what he needs to do, and that's move forward in the order, because that would drop the 64 down. This championship, this race is not over through turns 10, A and B. One more time for Matt Bell. He just needs 1 more lap around Road Atlanta to claim not only the victory, but the championship. And this race has not been without its drama, and it came late for Matt Bell in the 64 with that off in turn 5 that we saw just a few laps ago. Final lap here at Road Atlanta, final lap in the 2020 season. Empty racetrack in front. What's going through Matt Bell's mind right now, Jeremy?
He's just hoping that there's going to be no lingering effects from the mistake he made about 10-15 minutes ago. But he's just got to concentrate now, just focus forward, just hit his marks these last few corners, and he'll be coming home with a win and a championship.
Down the long back straightaway at Road Atlanta one more time, and you think of all the laps that have been run this year, the mistakes that you made, the things that you wish you could have back, and I'm not sure there are many of those for the K2R Motorsports squad. Naveen Rao has improved so much as a race car driver, and he's proved it with 3 pole positions on the year. It will now be 2 race victories on the year, and most importantly, Naveen Rao, Matt Bell claim the championship for IMSA Prototype Challenge, the 2020 season, and it all came down to this at Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta.
Just a tremendous performance by this team all season long. A great effort today. There's been a few hiccups and dramas along the way, but Matt Bell has got it done. A brilliant start to the race with Naveen Rao, and the Englishman Matt Bell finishes it off.
Well, and you look back, Dakota Dickerson comes across the line in 6th, and Jeremy Shaw, as you and I talked about, nothing to be embarrassed about there.
No, very much so. It's been a good run for them. There was all sorts of battling in that late stages. Dickerson able to close right up onto Stephen Simpson, but unable to find a way past. Just behind them, Tony Kazimierz snuck past Rasmus Lind in the last couple of laps as well. So all sorts of battling all the way through.
So let's look at the order as Matt Bell can finally take a breath, because I guarantee you, after the mistake that was made and the contact that was made, I'm sure he was thinking, please stay together. I don't want that to have affected our championship. And it could have gone away just that quickly, but they deserve this. So consistent all year long. Matt Bell, Naveen Rao, they take the victory. Tom Merrill, a great run in the number 11, sharing that car with Stephen Thomas, who his improvement, Jeremy, we talked about that, leaps and bounds from the beginning of this season. It's just his first year of pro racing.
Yeah, tremendous effort by the whole team, effectively. But yeah, it's been a thoroughly entertaining race, and in the championship positions, of course, Naveen Rao and Matt Bell, they'll have 190 points confirmed as champions, assuming they pass tech, of course. After the race, 174 points for Dakota Dickerson in third position in the points table, and I think Joel Janko is going to maintain third position in the final points ahead of Daniel Goldberg and then the Grant brothers.
We've seen great racing throughout the year, and Jeremy, I know you and I have talked about it. It's great to see these bronze drivers and the dedication and the hard work they've put in. The championship, certainly worthy champions, Naveen Rao and Matt Bell. Joel Janko has been an ambassador for this series for years. Sad to see him go, but this was his last race. And Jeremy, your biggest takeaway for 2020?
Just the fact that everything was able to keep going through the pandemic. We've seen some great racing, worthy champions here in K2R Motorsports, and Naveen Rao and Matt Bell.
Well, congratulations to our race winners and our champions, Naveen Rao and Matt Bell. For Jeremy Shaw, I'm Brian Till. Thanks for joining us for IMSA Prototype Challenge, the 2020 season. It was a great one. Stay tuned for 2021. Promises to be even better. We'll see you then.